It having reached the hour of 5:30, I am calling the August 10th, 2021 Modesto City Council meeting to order and ask the city clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Ricky?
Present.
Councilmember Zalaki?
Aye, are here.
Councilmember Canoyer?
Here.
Councilmember Wright?
Here.
Councilmember Escudia-Brayton?
Here.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Here.
Mayor Zwalman?
Here. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation from Reverend Edward William Esau Bake, St. John's Assyrian Presbyterian Church. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Greetings before prayer on behalf of all the clergies of Stanislaus County, especially City of Modesto. I appreciate for being in the land of freedom as we are in these days of Syrian Martyrs days and persecution. We appreciate all the freedom that we have in the United States, in this county, in this city, and our people are safe, are growing, and appreciating for your support. Our eternal God, we praise you as you have revealed your glory to all nations, to preserve your work of your mercy, and to spread the good news of being a nation under God. We thank you that you are everywhere, and you work in everything, and you use everyone for your own purpose in blessing humanity from all race, gender, age, and belief. We trust you for your order and providence in appointing this council to be your ministers in accomplishing your will in Modesto. Dear God, bless this council to experience and to know your ways and to be part of what you do in this city, and utilize them as your co-workers and ministers, and draw them near to where you are at work. Bless them and give them courage and passion to join you in doing your holy purpose in Modesto as it is in heaven. I pray to grant these council members to implement your love, justice, peace, unity, and purity in our community by remembering the experiences each and everyone has received from you. As this council works within the community and neighborhood, is their task in connecting with those who refuse to respect the authority of this council, and also use them in comforting and inspiring of those who support them. Dear God, grant this council a capacity to make meaningful interpretations of who they are and what the world is, and what is the most meaningful response to the needs of troubled ones and broken people in this city. I pray for their families and to continue supporting these loved ones and serving Modesto. I pray to keep them from evil and bless them to be safe, happy, strong, and healthy. May people of Modesto be encouraged in the way this council treats and serves them. May they see in this council the qualities of characters that can only be attributed to your presence. To you be the glory and honor forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does the city clerk have any announcements?
Yes, Mayor. Item 14 has been pulled from the consent for discussion.
Thank you. Do any council members have any conflicts of interest? All right. Does the city attorney have a report from closed session? You do not? He does not. I have a report. Tonight in closed session, the council took up the matter of the city clerk's resignation. The council, on a vote of 6-1, with Councilmember Madrigal voting no, accepted the resignation. Accordingly, the council agreed, at the request of her council, to place the city clerk on paid administrative leave until October 5th, 2021, effective immediately. We thank her for her service to the City of Modesto and wish her the best in her retirement. Next is acknowledgements and presentations. First of all, we have a county COVID update.
Hello, council members, mayor. Thank you for having me, and I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Manny Graywall, who is unavailable to be here tonight due to a family engagement. My name is Nick DeCousley, and I'm one of his field representatives. So I'm here just to give a county update, but also a City of Modesto update and what we're seeing from the county and the health services agencies of Stanislaus County. So throughout Stanislaus County in California, COVID-19 cases have continued to rise in the past 2 weeks. COVID-19 nearly doubled, unfortunately, increasing 87% among the county, 97% among Modesto residents compared to the past 2 weeks. This increase has been seen across all demographics and geographic regions in the county. The Delta variant, if you guys have not heard, continues to be a leading cause in the rising number of COVID-19 cases, and so I'm just going to take you guys through a quick little story here. In Barnstable County, Massachusetts, an outbreak of 469 positive cases were confirmed in July after numerous large gatherings. Of those that tested positive, 74% of those people who were fully vaccinated were fully vaccinated. Of the vaccinated that tested positive, only 4 were hospitalized with the infection. 2 of those had underlying conditions. So while this case demonstrates that post-vaccination positives are possible, it also shows how effective the vaccine is at preventing severe illness and death. An overwhelming majority of the people that have been hospitalized or died of COVID have been unvaccinated. So while vaccination is the best way that we know of to provide protection from COVID-19, breakthrough infections will happen, especially as the number of vaccinated Stanislaus County residents increases. Fully vaccinated people can greatly increase their protection against the virus by continuing to wear masks, socially distance, and wash their hands frequently. So we're still continuing to get the vaccination if you so choose to. And you know, these vaccination positives will occur, but chances are you have a much better opportunity to stay safe, stay healthy if you are fully vaccinated. So real quickly, just to go through the numbers, for Modesto, 60% of residents have received at least 1 dose, but that leaves 69,000 people who have not yet received a vaccine. And that's pretty on par with Stanislaus County as well, as 59% of people have received at least 1 dose, but there still is a large portion that have not received a single vaccine. So we're still encouraging people to follow the CDC guidelines, and if they so choose, get their vaccination, stay safe. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that report. Any questions from council members? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, comments from council members? Right, thank you very much for that report, Nick. Second item on the agenda is the presentation of proclamation recognizing August 7th, 2021 as the Syrian Genocide Remembrance Day, and I would like to read the proclamation. The Ottoman Empire committed the crime of genocide against the Assyrian people, killing at least 300,000 innocent Assyrians by way of mass executions, death marches, torture, and starvation during the First World War. In August 1933, approximately 3,000 Assyrians were brutally murdered in Somalia, in the, I want to say this correctly, Duhok and Mosul districts of modern-day Iraq by the nation Iraqi army and irregular Kurdish and Arab forces. August 7th is globally observed by the Assyrian community as the Syrian Memorial Day in remembrance of all massacres and genocides committed against the Assyrian people and of the persecution this community has faced as a result of their distinct ethnic and religious identity. The International Association of Genocide Scholars has found that the genocide against the Assyrian population was part of a larger campaign against Christian minorities including Armenians and Pontian and Anatolian Greeks. The resilience and endurance of the Assyrian people is commendable and praiseworthy, despite being victims of an ethnocide that is being continued by the Islamic State. The Assyrian community across the world continues to feel the effects of the Assyrian genocide, including families that have never been reunited. Now, therefore, the Modesto City Council does hereby recognize the Syrian Martyrs Remembrance Day and resolve to encourage education and public understanding of the facts of the Assyrian genocide and the relevance of the Assyrian genocide to modern-day crimes against humanity, dated this 10th day of August and signed by me, Suze Wallen, Mayor. And I will come down to present this to whoever would like to accept it, and if council members would like to join me, please do.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, city manager, and city attorney and staff, my name is Carmen Morad, and I am Public Relations Director for the Assyrian American Civic Club of Turlock. I would like to thank the City of Modesto, Madam Mayor, and members of the council for standing with the Assyrian community today. August 7th is a significant and meaningful day for our community. We call it Assyrian Martyrs Day. It is a day globally observed by all Assyrians when we come together and we remember, reflect, and we pay homage and honor to those who gave the ultimate price, their life, to protect their identity, their ethnicity, and their religious belief. I am so proud to live in a city that celebrates the diversity of its communities, and as a longtime resident, this proclamation and recognition and affirmation makes us, the Assyrian community, feel welcome and valued. Thank you again. I would like to ask Martin Umaran, the president of the Assyrian National Federation, to say a few brief words.
Mayor Zwellen, City Council members, thank you for this honor. On behalf of the Assyrian community here in Modesto, in California, and the nation and around the world, recognition is important for this day. I'm glad that our community has found a place like Modesto to call home, to practice our religion as Christians, to be free, religious freedom and practice, and be contributing citizens to this great nation and this great state and the city. We want to thank you for this honor to recognize the genocides and the atrocities that we all call them martyrs, because this is important. The Assyrian martyr is something significant. They are not martyrs that killed innocent people or blew themselves up for a cause. They were sacrificed just like Martin Luther King was for an assassination for civil rights. They died for freedom. They died for Assyria. And we should never forget them. They were young men, women, innocent children. They were all seen, and it's still going on. That's why it's not to just remember them, because it's still going on. It's an ongoing event. So I ask you to consider raising awareness on our cause, and we appreciate everything. Thank you again.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead and say
All right.
the words.
Thanks, Tony. شلام عليكم تا حويتم باسيمة قضاء إقارة أتموتيلوخن السهدت أمطن مخ هدامة residents ناشط Modesto California وأطرايق وكل تيول إقالة لقاتن قد شغلخ لها proclamation recognition قا سهدن. Thank you. So that's it, right? So.
Thank you, Martin.
You gotta translate that.
Maybe we can do subtitles later, Martin. I would also like to acknowledge our Congressman Josh Harder, who represents us in the 10th District. He is also the chair of the Assyrian Caucus in Congress, and he has introduced and presented a House resolution that was submitted to you that you just read, Madam Mayor. So thank you to our congressman, and thank you to all the advocacies that go on. And again, I would like to introduce our group who is here with us today. I would like to ask the president of the Assyrian American Civic Club, Mr. Albert Purtavardi, to please come up. and Mr. Fred Isaac of Assyrian Democratic Movement to please come up. Ms. Doris Umara, who is the president of the Assyrian National Council of Stanislaus County. Please come up, Doris. And we have Ms. Janet Atanus, who's the chair of the Assyrian Wellness Collaborative. We have two past presidents of the Assyrian American Civic Club, Mr. Cyrus Amirfar and Mr. Sam David, to please come up. Mr. Edmund Morad and John Morad, my husband and son, who are also here. And of course, our Reverend Edward Isabek of the Assyrian St. John Presbyterian Church and his son. Thank you.
Now it is time for public comment. If anyone wishes to speak on any item under public comment, please fill out a blue card. This is for items not on the agenda, and you have 3 minutes to speak. And I have one card for in-person. Stephen Bretzett.
I need you to get me with somebody in Public Works because I live in one of the things I'm going to put across today and I need to get a resolve to. I live in a prohibited zone in Salida and I can't get City of Modesto trucks over 14,000 pounds to stop driving through this prohibited zone. So can you put me together with somebody that's going to start working on that and get that taken care of? But I want it documented in the minutes of this meeting, just in case it comes to a different routing. I'm going to leave this. I've got lots of ideas. Urban places like Modesto, cities that are way too big for its britches, usually have a lot of ugliness. Multiple hot spots around. That's an understatement. So here's an idea. People post those signs all over telephone and light poles, without any authorization from the public entity, and they're seriously ugly. And city code enforcement should do something about that. Get some of the signs and then send letters to the quote unquote owners of the ones who legally put those ugly signs up, and tell them to stop. And if they don't, then send cease and desist orders on them. I think people are tired of seeing that ugliest in a small town, in a large city, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing I'm going to leave with you too, obviously, shopping carts, because there's no accountability in this state anymore with people, they get taken a lot. Well, there are other results also. So I'm going to leave that here too. Here's an example of a picture here. Here's a city public works truck full of shopping carts in the back. Do you know where that's going to go? That's going to go into a dumpster and into a landfill. Maybe, I don't know, Berlotti or whatever, Gilton is going to take them out or not, but, why are they going to a landfill? These are worth money. The merchants want them back. and they're willing to pay to get them back. So they should be going to the courtyard, and then the master list of the cart retrieval services, you know, once there's enough of an inventory of those carts built up, call that particular cart retrieval and say, hey, got 20, 30 of these carts that you pick up, and, you know, you're gonna have to pay us such and such to get them, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, that's one easy resolve of it. Also, some cities, geez, even City of Merced, shopping cart contact list, isn't that neat? You know, people want to report these things, and they want to get rid of them. They want to do something about it, you know? Use common sense. It's, you know, people are tired of this problem. It would be nice to do it maybe if city councils and county boards would, you know, at least try to get law enforcement to at least sporadically or sparingly, you know, cite people and then build a master list of those people. If they get caught again, well, you're going to spend 4 hours in the drunk tank. Okay, maybe they won't steal carts after that. You know, it makes a city or county or town look like, you know, unbelievable. So I'm going to leave that information to help. And then again, tell me who to get to with Public Works. And one last thing, I'm going to leave this too. Maybe I can give this to the Public Works. But one of the places that needs, you know, those pylon thingies is Stanford and Dale. When they come off of Stanford and make a right on Dale and the Firestone's there and the Trader Joe's and whatever, you know, it needs those little pylon things put up so that, you know, keeps people in that right-hand lane. So there's always a thing there. They seem to have gotten that idea accomplished in some other places. That's another place they need to do that, and it'll keep people coming off. They won't stop there and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So who can I get with Public Works wise that, you know, it's going to take care of my problem in Salida with the commercial vehicles, and then.
All right, yes, Bill will take your materials and follow up. Thank you, or Will.
Where?
Right here, you just leave them right there, and they're gonna step right up. Okay, sure, then step right over there. Right here, Will Wong and Bill Sandu.
Before you go, Madam Mayor, I have my hand up. I want to chat.
Sure, Councilmember Madrigal.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. What was it again?
Mr. Brassett.
Mr.
Bratzett.
First of all, I just want to thank you for showing up and caring enough to want to clean up our community. I wish we could clone you, but you know, I'm not being facetious.
All my ideas are later. One of the council members, she wrote an article. She was part of an article in the Mention Bulletin. I'm tired of these parts. Well, first of all, if you're not going to do something accountability-wise to people and make them stop it, well, then you have to come around from the other.
All right,
you know.
so maybe.
I just wanted to.
Collect them up, corral them, sell them back to the shopping cart retrieval, something, you know what I'm saying? And dump them into a landfill. I mean, that's kind of productive too.
Right.
We're spending tax dollars from public works people to pick them up, and then what are we doing with them? Well, let's get the money for them, you know. And then the other thing I told the other lady at Lathrop, I said, you need to create an ordinance. And this is another idea too. It might be in this paperwork. You create an ordinance. You say, okay, anything with a fleet over, let's say 10 or 20 carts. Beginning on this date, you have to start retrofitting your carts with 2 diagonal walk-up wheels. And if you're not done by this such and such date, completing the fleet, we'll work with you, whatever, but you have to start on this date.
Right.
You
So
know?
I just wanted to say, Mr. Bratzett, first of all, thank you for showing up. Thank you for your passion. In case you did not know, the City of Modesto has a newly created Blight Advisory Committee. It's made up of people in the community just like you. At the risk of sending you to another bureaucratic process, please consider applying if you can, attending our meetings. I think the people on this committee their task is to come up with ways, solutions to clean up our city. Everything ranging from shopping carts, like you mentioned, to tagging, to illegal trash dumping, you name it. There is a committee that just got created recently, and it's going to be coming up with ideas, everything ranging from even surveillance video cameras. Please get involved in that. The other thing I wanted to
You know what, Councilmember Madrigal, I'm going to suggest that he discuss
anyway,
this with.
Thank you.
I'm not going to negate
yeah.
all that, but you
Yeah.
know, the taxpayers also can't continue to pay for public services to keep doing all of these things too that other people are doing. I'll give you an example. Public Works, whether it be the city or county or whatever, you report a private encroachment in a public right of way. Somebody's growing in a city
Okay, sir?
They send Public Works out there and trim it. No, you're supposed to send a letter to the property owner and say, you need to trim this such and such back behind the property line or whatever, and you have such and such time to do it. If you don't do it, we'll come and trim it and then we'll
Okay.
bill you. See,
All
then,
right.
then they learn. And then we don't come and clean it up. All those results are great, but if nobody ever cites and or arrests somebody for a shopping cart theft law, which has been around for how long, it'll just continue.
All right, we have to end this conversation
Thank
here,
you.
and
Thank you so much.
please carry on in a moment. We do have a 3-minute time limit, and I'm going to remind everyone that public comment is for us to listen to the public. It's their opportunity to speak to us, and we listen. If things are not agendized, we really are not to get into any major discussion. But on we go. PJ Scruggs is the next person that I have a card for. Welcome.
Hello, I'm back again. It'd be nice to say I see all of you guys, but every time I come, there's an issue or a problem, so it's not. I'm here for housing, actually. We're still in it, me and my family and a lot of other folks. And now it has been exasperated by you guys have so graciously opened up Modesto, and we've got all these people coming from everywhere, and it's making it more difficult for people that live here to get adequate housing because they've got all this Bay Area money coming in, and the people that live here with the no jobs can't get decent housing. And on top of that, we have these evictions looming because of the pandemic. Our issues began before the pandemic, so we're well into this, too long. We still don't have our forever home, what they promised us that we'd have. We're in a temporary still. Half of my stuff is in storage, and we're living in a place with boxes. There's a lot of folks that don't even have that, so I'm grateful for that, but I'm not really all the way happy. And as to these evictions, the agencies around here, they have people and lawyers in place to help them. They've been doing this. They know the pattern. They know the routine. They know the judges. They know the people. Hi, how are you? They've already got the paperwork done and ready to go. As a person just living here and trying to get by, I don't have that luxury. I'm told to go to self-help, and then I have to deal with someone that doesn't know what I need, and I can't explain it because I'm not sure what I need, and other folks. And then when you have to go to court, you don't have anyone to represent you for these things. So I understand the stress that a lot of folks are under. You have to go to these agencies and talk to these people, and that wastes a lot of time when they already know what they're going to do. They already see you. They already in the business. They're supposed to be helping people, but they don't. They get the funding. They do whatever they want to do with the funding, and the people are still at a loss. We're still at a loss. We still don't have a home. We've been through the eviction not eviction process, we've been kicked out. So we avoided that, having it on a record that makes it even more difficult for you to find a place when you don't have the funds a couple of times. But it's very difficult for people that live here to find adequate, decent housing without bugs to get a nice place with people coming in. The evictions are looming. It's a headache. It's a headache for Modestans that are here and are not at the top of the list. It's a headache. Please do something. I mean, we're still waiting for our forever home that was promised to us by an agency 6, 7, longer than that, 10 years ago. So it's no fun being homeless. It's no fun having to go from place to place. It's no fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Latricia Beasley Day.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here representing Faith in the Valley and the community of Modesto. We are coming, we've submitted a Central Valley Housing Plan about a month ago now to our city council. I hope you've had time to review it. I've had the opportunity to meet with a lot of you to share our housing plan, but I'm here tonight to speak specifically about the right to counsel. I do understand that there are funds, $10 million. 10% of that can be allocated to use for the community for housing. A right to counsel is a right for citizens who are facing evictions to have representation. It is a very scary thing to go into the eviction court against landlords' attorneys and find yourself trying to navigate through paperwork, time, and you don't have enough money to obtain an actual attorney to represent you, so you're trying to represent yourself, and likely you get evicted. A right to counsel would stop evictions, would help people maintain their housing or give them adequate time to find other housing. We are a coalition of people who are comprised of renters, professionals, clergy, and community organizers. And we are asking the council to revisit the Central Valley Housing Plan and the right to counsel to stop homelessness, to stop evictions, going forth to help people maintain their home. Please review our plan, make a decision. As you heard PJ say, she is still seeking her forever housing. There are so many others. Unfortunately, they could not be here tonight with us, but I'm bringing them back so that you can hear their stories. It's horrible. We need our city council to stand up for the people. We need a right to counsel. We need a comprehensive housing plan for the people so that they can have permanent, sustainable, affordable housing. Please hear our cry. We'll be back. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Kimberly Alston.
Good evening, everyone. I'll make this
Good evening. Sure.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for the welcome. Again, my name is Kimberly Alston, and it's ironic, I went to eviction court today. So I stand before you because I wanted to tell you my story and what it's like for me living in Modesto. As a senior, I know I look good, but I am a senior. I soon will be 61 years old in October. I came here in 2004, and I have encountered the worst discrimination, humiliation, degradation when it comes to housing. I have worked all my life, and I have paid into it. So what I obtain now is Social Security. So now that the policy is that you have to have 3 times the amount of rent to afford housing, my Social Security, you know what that leaves me? Homeless, automatically. No one will rent to me. And as a result, I have encountered prejudice. I lived on Orange, right here, and the young lady said, I will not live next door to the N-word. The landlord was appalled, but she was a longtime tenant, and he went up on my rent and said, I'm sorry, you're a good tenant, but I've had her longer. I'd rather have her than you. And I had to move out of that unit. I moved on Floto. I got ran out of there, falsely accused of being a witch. The neighboring, I'm the only black girl living over there. They're coming over there, accosting me, harassing me, asking the landlord to help me and support me. I got no help. I tried to seek an attorney. I got no help. I just got ran out of that apartment complex. I moved on Whitmore in Ceres. Young kid calling the police, telling them that I'm being raped. I'm at functions, and the cops are at my door. My security camera is showing cops with their guns, pointing at, and harassed out of that apartment complex as well. I sought attorneys, no one to help me. No one to help me. I just recently went to court today.
The landlord turned off the lights, the water. I had to go to city codes to get the water turned back on. I broke out in a rash all over my body. She came and changed the locks twice during quarantine. I got the eviction. I did, because that is in a separate court. I couldn't even talk about it today. And so if you don't know the law, but if I commit a crime in this city, I get a public defender. That just doesn't make sense when housing is so needed. And one last question, because we do need right to counsel. Somebody has to represent people, because not every tenant is not paying their rent. Not every tenant. Okay, my buzzer's up. Thank you for your time. One question. The revenues for all these cannabis clubs, where are they going? Because that's millions of dollars every day. And this city shouldn't have potholes. We shouldn't have homelessness, because other states have used the revenues from cannabis clubs to build tiny houses and affordable housing for individuals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see online Kevin McClarty.
Yes, good evening, Council, Mayor and Council. First of all, I want to begin by thanking the Council and the City Manager for getting the stripes drawn on the Brixmore overpass, getting those stripes painted. I really want to thank you for that, for listening to me on that and getting that done. The other matter, two matters I want to talk about. I want to talk about the resignation of Stephanie Lopez, City Clerk. Although I cannot get involved in personnel matters as a citizen, I would like to make the comment that I think that the city ought to return to her the 5% of her salary that was taken away from her when she was whistleblowing. She was whistleblowing about Doug Ridenhour and also the city attorney. And I don't think that she should be penalized for that. I realize that there's some sort of a policy against emailing out this sort of thing, but I believe that that's a separate matter, and I don't think that she should be penalized by 5% of her pay, and I would urge the council to return that to her. I also would like to speak in support of those who have been calling for a Trevor Seaver Day on December 29th. You know, I realize that the city is enmeshed in this legal case and nobody can really say anything because of liability reasons and so on and so forth. No one can comment on it. I understand that, but I think that if we were to have a Trevor Seaver Day, that what it would represent is the fact that this young man did what he was supposed to do. He had no weapon. He went to a church, which in that act in itself is symbolic of asking for help. He raised his hands when he was asked to do so by Officer Lamantia, who ended up killing him. He complied in every way with every request by Officer Lamantia. And so I think that if we were to have a Trevor Seaver Day, that it would represent the, honoring somebody who did what he was supposed to do, and he was killed anyway. And I think it would be very important to do that. And I also would like to invite the Seaver family and our friends of Trevor Seaver to go to my Facebook page, Modesto Politics Run Amok. That's it, Modesto Politics Run Amok, if you would like to discuss this matter in more detail. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Next is Ramon Rodriguez.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. It's been 6 months that Alonso Nunez have been beaten and brutalized by 4 Modesto police officers, and 6 months later, still, he hasn't got justice. He still has medical bills and debt from the hospital stays. The officers involved were still patrolling, and even though I was promised that the investigation is still ongoing, but I haven't heard nothing yet. And also, Alonso's Fifth Amendment rights were violated because Stanislaus County DA's office is charging him with the violation of the of restraining order violation, but that's being handled by Merced County's DA office. And Stanislaus should only handle his arrest charges only, and Stanislaus should stay away because Alonso has been attending and complying with his probation officer in Merced County, and he has court with Merced County. I don't know what's going on, but the legal system failed him here in Stanislaus County. He never got his letter for a court appearance in Stanislaus County. This is way out of hand because his constitutional rights were violated, and we demand justice for Alonso Muniz because this is why, especially as an immigrant who doesn't understand English, they're taking advantage of him because they know he has no rights. He spoke Spanish, and they're taking advantage of him because they want him out of the country. But now I am learning about what's going on, and there's need to be accountability in the Modesto Police Department. That's why I still support Civilian Review Board, which in cases like Alonso Nunez, he can submit a complaint to them instead of the police department because he's still traumatized. And also, I went to coffee with the Turlock police chief last month, and he expressed to members of the community that he needs to have at least 2 mental health workers at his police department for mental health cases. And I raised my hand and I told Chief Williams, will you consider having a COOTS style program? And he didn't know what COOTS is, but he's interested. So if Turlock Police is interested in having a program, so does Modesto. I know Chief Gillespie is listening, but you should give a call to Chief Williams and have a discussion because right now it's happening everywhere. And if Turlock can have it, Modesto will, and possibly all of Stanislaus County. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is Stephen Allen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Right on. I'm just calling basically to kind of express my concerns for the Forward Together initiative. I'm seeing some real mixed messages, and I cannot remember exactly. I'm not going to try to quote him verbatim, but at the first meeting, before the committee started meeting, the open to the public one, he said something like, we want to basically police this community how this community wants to be policed. Well, I do not want there to be 2 police officers in the room making their presence dominant. That in and of itself is not opening yourself up to the community telling you how they want you to lead them. Excuse me. It's hypocritical. I do not think that either of those officers should be on the committee, as well as DA Fladiger and Sheriff Dirksey have absolutely no business being on that committee. For one thing, in recent times, Sheriff Dirksey has just outright defied the law and told people basically he's not going to enforce mask mandates. I don't want a sheriff like that who sees his power that way to be in a committee that's supposed to be about the community letting you guys know how they want to be policed, as he put it. Jeff Dirksey should not be on the committee. Birgit Flagger should not be on there. Brandon Gillespie should not be on there. And the other officer, whose name I cannot remember, who showed up in all of his tactical gear and is high up in the police union, that alone should astound everyone. Wake up. This is not Forward Together led by the community if all of the normal pouch brokers are calling all the shots. I hope that this can actually yield some real, honest changes in this town, but it's going to have to be done with a little bit more honesty than that. We want accountability, And by the way, Sheriff Dirksen moving behind closed door with far-right groups, not accountability. Absolutely no way should that man be on that committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Hunter.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
First, I'd like to thank you for having me speak. So I'm a citizen of Stanislaus County, specifically Modesto, and I want to reiterate what people have said previously about affordable housing. I really do believe that we need to talk about this more front and center. Affordable housing is extremely necessary in Modesto because in Modesto alone, we have, I think, about a little over 2,000 people who are homeless and even more facing possible evictions and homelessness. I would say that this is all because of the pandemic, but that's simply not true. This has been a problem for many, many years. I also want to bring up what someone previously said, that the woman, I cannot remember her name, but she has faced a lot of discrimination within housing and within her own neighborhood, for her being a Black woman. In housing programs and just in the world in general and many different environments, Black people are disproportionately affected by evictions, by lack of affordable housing, lack of jobs, people of color in general, as well as LGBTQ people, especially those who are transgender or gender nonconforming and non-binary. We really need to invest more in programs that can help with housing, not just for youth, but for all of us, especially those of us who are most vulnerable. And I also want to talk about the policing issue here. We desperately need an accountable and transparent committee oversight board for policing. I often feel that affordable housing, homelessness, and policing go hand in hand. Homeless people are disproportionately targeted by the police and harassed, and I've seen this on numerous occasions working in these fields. So we need accountability, we need a police oversight board, and we need more affordable housing. Police aren't going to prevent these problems. If anything, it's shown that they make this worse. We need to solve crime by community programs that help the community and keep the community safe. And that's all I had to say. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
You're welcome. Next online, we have Darlene Ruiz.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we certainly can.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I wanted to thank you, Kevin, for asking for December 29th to be Trevor Siebert Day. That means a lot to me. If the city would consider making a day for Trevor, he did have his hands up and never resisted arrest. And I think that's the least we could do to honor Trevor. I'm also asking for an independent police auditor for our police department. The Forward Together, I think, is it's a great step in the right direction, but I believe until we get to the root of the problem, nothing's gonna change. Trevor wasn't the first person Joseph Lamatia killed. He was allowed to be on that force and kill four people before Trevor, 3 people in 2016. He shot somebody 6 weeks before he shot Trevor. There's a breakdown in the department that somebody like that could continue to be on the police force and no red flags were put forth. I'm also asking for a mental health crisis intervention program like Cahoots, implement a civilian review board, and I'm really concerned about the district attorney taking over a case when they've worked hand in hand with Joseph Lamatia and are good friends with the police department. I really believe there's a conflict of interest, and an attorney general or somebody else should be taking those cases instead of allowing friends to charge and to put charges against somebody that is their friend. I would like to help strengthen de-escalation practices with the police department, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to come forward to speak under public comment?
I didn't fill out a list, is that okay?
Sure. Why don't, Scotty, would you mind handing her a blue card?
I didn't know what the process was.
Sure. That's great. Come on, come step up, and then we have a little blue card if you can take your time.
Hi, I'm Joan Sanford, and I sympathize with people that have issues with homes and not enough places to live. Unfortunately, this has been a complaint with me for the last 3 years on a reverse mortgage in my neighborhood. And I just want to say, I'm finally moving out of state, so you lose taxes, you lose your vote, whatever, because I have been fighting the system for so long, and it just kind of gets shoved from one place to another. I won't go into the list of names that I've gone through. I've called your office several times. The other mayor, Josh Harder, police department, sheriff's department, all of them, and nothing. And I know somebody say, well, it's a civil thing, and it's this and that. So what I'm saying is it's a reverse mortgage, and we have squatters, and it's been that way for 3 years. And the lady that owns the house is not there. She's in an assisted living, and she's mentally declining. And I just found out yesterday, I got a call from her niece, and she's got to cut things dumped on her because she was given power of attorney through a system. And then she called me today, and she said she's paying $700 to have, I guess, an eviction, to have people removed from the premises. I'm not the only person that has left this neighborhood. I think I'm the 6th, if not the 5th. And people won't say anything because they say nothing ever gets done. I'm pretty vocal. I like a good fight. And let me just tell you, law enforcement has my respect. I know there's things that go on, but I'll tell you, my husband was in law enforcement, so we could write a book, right? I'm just saying, though, that with this situation, we shouldn't have to move out of our neighborhood. I've talked to Nova back in Indiana, Oklahoma City, had the number. I've done it all, and nothing seems to get resolved. And so I don't know if it even comes back to the city to have this done. But I sold my house in 5 days, and yes, it was from somebody from the Bay Area that came to move here because they can afford a house here, I guess. But what I'm saying is, what do we do? Everybody knows because I'm pretty vocal. I go around the neighborhood every day. I've been down and saw Chris somebody, and I showed him pictures of garbage that was piled from here to there. And they said, well, where'd you get those pictures? And I said, I went like this, click, click, click. He said, well, you can't do that. I said, why? He said, well, you can go to jail for that. And I said, well, why don't you put me in jail? I've always wanted to see what it looked like. Why do we have to do that? Where do I go to get this resolved? And the only reason I'm down here is because I don't want to leave my neighborhood and say I didn't try to do something. Everybody calls me to take care of a situation. So I don't know. I don't think there's an easy answer. But why should a reverse mortgage for 3 years not be taken care of? And if I told you the address, somebody would say, oh, I know about that. So you win. Sorry.
No, it's.
Well, there's no easy answer. Yeah, right. You know, everybody's got a story to tell. You want to hear mine, get your hanky out. But you know what I'm saying? Everybody's got a story to tell.
Right.
And I don't.
I appreciate you sharing your concerns. I'm going to ask a gentleman in the back, Jalen French, that maybe you could have a conversation with him.
I talked to him several times.
Okay, all right. Thank you. He's here this evening.
Good.
Thank you for your comments.
I'd like to talk to him.
He's right back there to your right. Thank you. All right, I have a card from Kevin Scott.
Hi, I'm Kevin Scott, and I live up in the northeast part of Modesto. Used to be the old drive-in movie theater lot, I think some people know. where it used to be. Anyhow, when we moved in 34 years ago, the city came and planted trees. And I told them, I said, at that time, I said, do you know this used to be a drive-in movie theater lot? The kid said, no, I didn't know that. I said, okay, so you dig down. You need a post hole digger to dig deeper to get to the roots so they can spread out properly. Well, over the years now, they have immediately have lifted, and they're starting to destroy the sidewalks in our area. And I got one sidewalk right out in front of my house that I had a person trip. And if I wasn't out there, she would have landed on her face. So I've reported to the city, and the city comes out, they just put a little asphalt and say, that's it. The thing is that now the roots from the city trees, and we can't cut the trees, we can't trim the trees without having approval from the tree board. I told him, I said, I'd like to have one tree taken down. I have 3 on my corner lot, 1 taken down so I can go ahead and put solar panels up. He said, yeah, you can do that. I said, okay, fine, I'll get a tree service to do it, or you guys do it. No, we don't do it, but we have a list of people who we recommend. So I turned to him and I said, that's a kickback. I said, there's a reason why you have a list of these people. These people just don't just pop up. You have to get some kind of kickback from this, and I know this from sales. So the point is, my sidewalk, my driveway has been damaged by the trees. So I'm looking at an estimate to repair my driveway on the city tree roots, and estimated about almost $2,800 that I should not have to pay for. If anything, the city should pay for half of it because of the tree roots. You have my name, you have my address, you have my phone number. If you can please have somebody call me and have them come out. I'd like to take care of this. And last time the guy came out, he said, we trimmed the trees 10 years ago. No, the trees weren't done. But the guy was really arrogant. I couldn't believe it. And so any way you look at it, there's some issues going on, and sidewalks around the whole area are bad, and you see them all over downtown. So something has to be done, all right? But thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
All right, are there any other members of the public who would like to speak at this time? Okay. All right, I see one online here. Priscilla?
Hi, yes. I live in Modesto. I'm a teacher here, and I just want to make 2 comments. One, about the affordable housing. I agree with all of what the ladies were saying. I just want to add my perspective on that. I'm a full-time educator, like I was saying, and I have been looking for a house for over a year and still haven't been able to buy. Working full-time, every single house I put a bid in is being sold to somebody out of town for $20,000, $30,000 over the asking price. And I think the city needs to do something about this. They need to protect their citizens. You guys are driving your citizens out of Modesto. So I think you guys definitely need to do something about that. We have, landlords trying to kick people out over dumb things like the lawn or something like that, and there's nowhere else to go. And these rent prices are insane. We can't even afford, we're not making 3 times the rent as a freaking teacher. So I just think, city needs to do something about this. Because this housing problem is getting way out of control for everybody. A lot more people are going to be homeless soon if it continues going up like this. And then I just wanted to make a comment regarding the item about adding to the list of banned items for protests. I think you guys should just keep in mind that the only reason protesters even started bringing the extra gear to protest is to protect themselves from the police. I've been to several protests here in our city, and the police could be doing better in the way that they handle people. At the Modesto March 2 summers ago, afterwards I was sitting at the Fuzio's dining area outside, and I seen MPD come out with their riot gear and their beanbag guns and their rubber bullets, and they were just hopping back and forth, hyped up that they're about to get into some action. They were not excited to try to protect people. They're excited to go out there and shoot rubber bullets at people, and almost hitting me and my friends who were just sitting outside at the table. So I just think, maybe you should keep the police a little more accountable instead of trying to hold citizens more accountable. Our police should be held at a higher, should be held more accountable than, the regular citizens. They should be able to to, you know, deal with the people at a protest without having to shoot at them and shoot, you know, and shoot gas at them and things like that. People bring those materials to protect themselves, and they wouldn't have had to even bring that stuff if the police weren't acting the way they're acting. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more public comment requests, we will close the public comment period. Next are the consent items. Is there a request from someone else to pull an item?
Yes, Mayor, item 6 has also been pulled from consent.
All right. Thank you. All right, will you read the consent items, please, except for item number 6 and number 14, correct?
Item 3, consider approving the minutes from the August 4th, 2021 council meeting. Item number 4, consider final adoption of ordinance 3733, adding section 2-8.10, electronic filing disclosure to chapter 8, campaign reform of title 2, administration to the Modesto Municipal Code relating to electronic filing of campaign disclosure statements and statements of economic interest, form 700. Item 5, consider approving a cooperative funding agreement with the Stanislaus Council of Governments, StanCog, for the pavement management program to provide Measure L funding in the amount of $179,819. Item 6 has been pulled from consent. Item 7, consider approving a will serve letter and outside service agreement for water service for the property located at 1616 Kansas Avenue in Modesto. Item 8, consider approving a will serve letter and outside service agreement for water service for the property located at 305 Banner Court in Modesto. Item 9, consider approving the award of an Emergency Solutions Grant CARES Act Round 2 ESG-CV2 grant in the amount not to exceed $91,838 plus $5,000 activity delivery cost to the Salvation Army Modesto Citadel for the operation of the Barbarian Emergency Shelter located at 329th Street, Modesto, California. Item 10, consider approving the final map and subdivision agreement of the Wood Glen Subdivision Village 1 and Village 3. Item 11, consider approving service agreements with Elevator Industries Incorporated of Sacramento, California, and TK Elevator Corporation, formerly known as ThyssenKrupp Elevator, Sacramento, California, by utilizing the competitive bid process with the County of Stanislaus for elevator maintenance and repair services for a 2-year agreement with 2 1-year extension options for an annual estimated cost of $113,792 and a total combined cost not to exceed $455,168 over 4 years, and authorizing the Director of Finance or her designee to adjust agreement totals between the 2 vendors based on contractors' availability and department's needs, ensuring the combined total cost does not change. Item 12, consider approving the purchasing agreement by utilizing the cooperative agreement with State of California Department of General Services for police and traffic radar, LiDAR, speed enforcement, and speed advisory systems, parts and accessories to Apply Concepts Incorporated, doing business as Stalker Radar from Richardson, Texas, for a 1-year agreement with 2 1-year extension options for an annual estimated cost of $177,000 and total amount not to exceed $531 over 3 years. Item 13, consider approving the First Amendment, increasing the agreement amount with Innovative Claim Solutions for the furnishing of workers' compensation claims, managing services by $499,570 from $2,954,602 to a new total amount of $3,454,172, and extending the term of the agreement from September 1st, 2021 to September 1st, 2022. Item 14 has been pulled from consent. Item 15, consider rejecting all bids for the Upgrade Advanced Traffic Management Systems 2019 project and authorizing staff to re-advertise the project for bids at a future date. Item 16, consider approving an agreement using the competitive bidding process for the City of Fresno with Calgon Carbon Corporation, Moon Township, PA for the purchase and installation of granular activated carbon for a 1-year agreement with 4 1-year extension options for an estimated annual amount of $660,000 and a total amount not to exceed $3,504,683 over 5 years. Item 17, consider approving the sole source agreement with HSQ Technology from Hayward, California for maintenance and support of the supervisory control and data acquisition for a 2-year agreement with 3 1-year extension options for an estimated annual cost of $47,520 and total amount not to exceed $252,348 over 5 years. Item 18, consider approving the plans and specifications for the rebid of the Fire Station 5 kitchen remodel project and awarding a construction contract to OK Construction of Antelope, California in the amount of $121,750 plus $25,000 in contingencies if needed for a total amount not to exceed $146,750 and amending the fiscal year 2021-22 multi-year budget in the amount of $85,730. Item 19, consider accepting the plans and specifications for the rebid Cadoni Lift Station Force Main Replacement Project and awarding construction contract with Rolf Construction Company Incorporated of Atwater, California in the amount of $269,238 plus $26,924 for contingency if needed for a total amount not to exceed $296,162 and amending the fiscal year 2021-2022 capital improvement budget in the amount of $338,887. Item 20, consider approving the plans and specifications for the wastewater building upgrades project and awarding a construction contract with Azul Works Incorporated of San Francisco, California in the amount of $769,000 plus $115,350 for contingency if needed for a total amount not to exceed $884,350 and authorizing an increase in the director's authority from 10% $76,900 to 15% $115,350 of the construction contract price of $769,000 to issue change orders.
Move to approve all consent items except consent item number 6 and 14.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Knoyer and a second by Councilmember Madrigal. Will you please do the roll call?
Councilmember Zerke?
Aye.
Councilmember Zalaki?
Aye.
Councilmember Knoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Councilmember Escudia Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Mayor Zawalin?
Aye, and the motion carries. We'll go to item 6, and I'll ask staff to come forward with a brief report. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council.
Maybe I'll start, would you like me to read the item first?
Sure.
Would that be helpful? Probably would, so that everyone knows exactly what we're talking about here. Thank you. Consider approving the plans and specifications for the Crow's Landing Road Pavement Rehabilitation, STPLC ML-5059-208 project, accepting the bid and awarding a contract to United Pavement Maintenance Incorporated of Houston, California, in the amount of $2,291,624, authorizing the Director of Utilities to approve change orders up to the cumulative amount of $229,162, accepting Federal Regional Surface Transportation Program, RSTP, entitlement funds, and Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program, CMAQ funds, in the amount of $2,803,708, and amending the fiscal year 2021-2022 Capital Improvement Program budget, Project 100881, in the amount of $2,833,708. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a project we're excited about. It is a roadway rehabilitation project and safety improvement project. We've had a considerable amount of traffic accidents on that roadway. The Stanislaus County completed their portion this summer of the roadway. We will now start after award of bid, if it is approved. We'll start our construction next month or in October, and we expect the project to conclude in late spring or early summer next year.
All right, thank you. Any questions from council members? Excuse me, Councilmember Madrigal?
Okay, I muted myself. There we go. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I pulled this item. Thank you, Jalen, for your overview. I just didn't want to let this moment go by without pointing out that, in so many words, like you said, we are finally doing that other part of the big Crow's Landing Road improvement project. It's been a long time coming. A lot of community members and local business leaders have been wondering when that's going to happen. And so I appreciate you sharing the approximate timeline. You're saying October at the latest, the start of this year, hopefully by spring, maybe done by summer of next year. And so I look forward to that. If I don't know if there's any plans to do any kind of groundbreaking, or if that's going to delay it, let's just get to work, I guess.
Great,
Anyway,
thank
that's it.
you.
Thank you.
Any comments from the public? Seeing none, any comments from the council? All right, may I have a motion to approve item number 6
Move
as
to
stated?
approve.
Approved by Councilmember Madrigal, seconded by Councilmember Wright. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shirky?
Aye.
Zalaki? Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Councilmember Scudia Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Mayor Zwollen?
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We'll go now to item number 14. Consider approving, this is number 14 on the consent agenda. Consider approving the city's sponsorship of the 22nd Annual 2021 North Modesto Kiwanis Graffiti Parade and Car Show, including the waiver of city permit fees, police department overtime and vehicle costs, and streets division labor and equipment cost at an estimated cost of $80,202. And appreciate the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor, council members. Bill Sandu, Public Works Director. So American Graffiti Parade is scheduled for August 20th, followed by car show at Muni for 21st and August 21st and August 22nd. And the requested in-kind city sponsorship or the support is for staff and equipment time for public works and police, for street closers and other functions. And also for parking lot rental fees for Central Plaza parking lot. So the total requested in-kind support is estimated at $80,202. And Scotty just pulled the map there. So basically, the American Graffiti Parade starts in downtown J Street, and I believe goes to McHenry all the way to Brixmore. Generally, it turns around at Brixmore. Even the map shows Orangeburg, but my understanding is turns around at the Brixmore. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions from council members? All right, Council Member Ricky.
Yeah, I pulled this this item because, first of all, I support this event strongly, and I think it's a really good nod to Modesto's heritage. It's very important to the future, I think, of our community. But I've been getting a lot of calls from people that are running other events in the city that are unsure of how the city decides which events that they provide in-kind services for. And so I'd just like to request that we find a way to provide at least the council members and the public with what our approved events list and what our admin directives are, so that we can better communicate to people that are doing events how we decide to do these things and why we decide to do these things, just so that we have a more open process in it.
Right.
Thank you, Council Member. I believe in the past, the City Council has approved a list of events that we can, we'll be happy to look into and provide you a copy of that.
Do we have a motion? Oh, sorry. Oh, I need to go back out to the public too. All right, questions still. Tony Madrigal. Sorry, got distracted.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with Councilmember Ricky's request to have a public list of events that the City of Modesto is co-sponsoring so that they know in advance, and as well having a process where people in the public can say, can approach the city, can feel that they can approach the city and say, I have an event, it's a community event, and expected attendance and whatnot, and I'd like to request sponsorship, because as somebody who's started an event, it was, I remember it was a couple events, the Trunk or Treat event, and then later we also started the 4th of July All-American Festival in downtown. Starting any event in the community is hard, and then one of the biggest initial hurdles is, for example, those fees, whether you're going to close a road, any kind of security, sound permits, and being able to know that there might be some funds or a process where you can apply for sponsorship or co-sponsorship from your city to do an event that you're simply trying to, do for the community to help bring us together, especially in this time as we try to, we keep saying, get back to normal, quote unquote. And so I definitely look forward to seeing something like that. I know that we're stepping forward, carefully, given the fact that we do have some new funding that's been made available to us as a city. However, some long-term planning, some, putting some of these events, especially the historically approved and supported events on a list that, for example, might even get regularly approved every year. It's just a normal part of the council budget, the city budget that gets approved. Something like that that we can count on as community organizations, and therefore we can plan. They actually plan with ease. That I think the kind of step in the right direction that I like to see. So it wasn't a question; it was just more of a comment.
All right.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
And I'll just reiterate, and this is for the benefit of the new council members. We had historically developed an annual list of sponsorships that was included as part of the budget process. But because of COVID over the last 2 fiscal years and the uncertainty of events, we had not approved that, the list of events that the city was likely to sponsor. We didn't bring it forward this year because we're still living in this uncertain times of what events may or may not happen, and to allocate those funds while we're already living under difficult budget times wasn't a prudent move. So we'll be happy to share the historical list and what the criteria is for the admin directive. And I anticipate as we move forward that this annual list will come back to the council during budget deliberations.
Thank you. Any other questions from council members? All right. Any comments from the public on this topic? All right. Councilmember Ricky has one more question.
Yeah, what I was curious though is for events that aren't on the list, how do those events interact with the city appropriately to ask for support from the city?
We have a developed process where they can reach out to the respective department and make that request. Well, we'll provide that information.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. We need to go to the public first. Once again, I don't think we had anyone. All right. Great. We have a motion from Councilmember Wright.
Second.
Second from Councilmember Madrigal. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Ricky?
Aye.
Councilmember
Aye.
Zalaki? Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Councilmember Scudia-Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Mayor Zwallen?
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, we will go to council comments and reports. Councilmember Canoyer.
This is probably more something for the community to look after. I have a daughter and a family that live in Aptos who are totally vaccinated. My granddaughter, who lives with their mom and dad, went to Florida on the final weekend of July for 3 days, came back on Monday, was told by some people she was with that they were in contact with someone who had COVID. She tested negative. On Tuesday, she tested again. Now, you imagine, she was there Friday to Sunday. She tested positive. On Tuesday, no symptoms. Her father tested positive on Wednesday. Her mother tested negative on Wednesday. But Sunday morning, woke up deathly ill. Fortunately, not sick enough to be hospitalized, but got COVID. So we just, even if we're vaccinated, we have to be very, very careful. And I'm going to make a political statement. Don't go to Florida. You know, don't go to Florida. I think if you look at how infected they are, maybe if they were a state, we could make it so that we could ban them. So I'm serious. It's very, very, it only took 4 days for it to spread through my little family, and who knows how much more. So be really, really careful. You know, I know people don't like to wear masks and things, but you want to protect yourself and your loved ones. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Councilmember Conoyer. Any other comments from council members or reports? Councilmember Ricky.
So currently, the City of Modesto holds our Police Academy graduations at the House. That's a church in Modesto with a well-documented past of unofficially endorsing political candidates, like Sheriff Jeff Dirksey, who trains our cadets currently. It's certainly not that we lack public spaces to hold this graduation. We have a grossly underutilized public venue, Modesto Center Plaza, that could easily be used instead, but it wasn't considered. The separation of church and state is a pillar of our country. We need to be a government that stands for our country's ideals, especially when those in power are the first to violate them. Working in government, we have to weigh the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And what we do when we have a rule, what do we do when we have a rule, but we won't stand up for it? We all know that this is a wrong thing to do. And the question I have is, do we have the courage to change course? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Ricky. Any other comments or reports? Councilmember Madrigal.
Just wanted to share with the council that last week I sent a letter to Congressman Josh Harder urging his support and help in trying to find funding for completion of the railroad quiet zones in downtown Modesto. Just by way of a brief background, the City of Modesto conducted a study to find out how much it would cost to establish quiet zones at our railroad crossings in downtown because they impact our businesses and our neighborhoods, specifically the railroad, the train noise. And for those of you who don't know, a quiet zone, a quiet railroad crossing zone, such as the one that they have over in Escalon, reduces the noise by installing directional speakers that make the train horn noise and thereby disturb the surrounding area less. We did a study. We found out the crossing zones cost between $2.5 million to $3.9 million, and this study was done a good 5 years ago or more. Since then, things have changed, and we're trying to reopen. We're trying to invest in infrastructure, and so I just want to let the council know I sent that letter to Congressmember Harder, hoping he might be able to help, try to have these railroad quiet zones, become a reality with some hopefully some federal funding help in my downtown district. That's it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other council member comments and reports? Seeing none, we will go on to city manager comments and reports. And we have a report from our city manager, Joe Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. After a comprehensive nationwide search and extensive community input, I am excited to announce Brandon Gillespie as Modesto's next Chief of Police. Recognizing the essential role this position plays in making Modesto safer and developing positive relationships with our community, we developed a thorough process that incorporated community feedback, input from police department staff to ensure that the new leadership aligns with the priorities of our community. Of all the outstanding candidates that applied for this position, Brandon's qualities and skills best align with what our community needs right now. Throughout his long history serving Modesto, Brandon has shown himself to be a leader with integrity and compassion and who does not shy away from making difficult decisions. During his time as interim chief and throughout the interview process, Chief Gillespie embraced the challenge of the most pressing needs in our community, including addressing use of force, reducing racial disparities, addressing homelessness, and reevaluating the way we respond to mental health calls in our community. Chief Gillespie has spent his career serving the city of Modesto, and I am confident he can make a tremendous impact on our community as the next police chief. Please join me in congratulating Chief Gillespie on his appointment.
We would love to hear your comments.
Thank you. City Manager Lopez, Mayor, City Council members, I couldn't be more humbled and filled with gratitude and be honored to serve as the next police chief for the city of Modesto. I've been a citizen of this community for over 40 years and a police officer here for the last 20, and I love this city. I am raising my children here. I met my wife here, and I have extended family that lives here as well. And I am excited for the opportunity. I've been able to work with and lead an amazing police department for the last 20 years in service to this city, and I couldn't be more proud of the men and women of the police department. Also, as City Manager Lopez said, I'm excited about the challenge that we have. These are unprecedented times that we are in as a nation in law enforcement, and I'm excited for the opportunity to lead and be a model city for how we make things better. If I've learned anything in my 20 years of law enforcement, it comes down to relationships. And it is what I value about this city is the relationships we have amongst each other from all different groups with the police department, and the community. And I commit to continuing to develop and nurture those relationships so that we can move forward as a community together. And so I really appreciate the opportunity. Again, I'm humbled, and thank you for the opportunity to continue leading this department. Thank you.
Thank you. And stay right here. We're going to allow time for comments from council members. All right, Vice Mayor Escudia Brayton.
Congratulations, Chief. Thank you, Councilmember Madrigal. Congratulations, Chief. I'm very proud of you, and I want to thank everyone that participated in this very comprehensive, this very transparent, this very involved process. It was very community-centered. I know you had stiff competition. As City Manager indicated, the recruitment process was far and wide, and you presented your abilities and your love for this community and came out victorious. I look forward to supporting you and your team in working with our community and making Modesto just a great place to live. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I've got several. Councilmember Wright.
I'm too proud that you have been chosen as our new chief, and I know your compassion for every citizen in Modesto, that you do have compassion for them. And I'm really looking forward to a new start with you, with plans you have to really make this a better city. And my hat's off to you, and thank you, City Manager, for the job you did in looking at different recruits. You know, sometimes the grass always looks green on the other side. Just a brief comment. I know one of the candidates that came to Modesto, I think our Deputy City Manager, Scotty Douglas, drove him around town, and he couldn't believe how clean our town was. So, a lot of times we forget that there's a lot of other cities out there that have a lot bigger problems than we do. And I'm looking forward to your leading our police officers becoming better police officers for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, Councilmember Canoyer.
I'm not going to repeat what everyone else said, but you and I have had extensive discussions on what Modesto is and the city that it is. And the one thing that I think that a lot of people don't understand is that we're not a little tiny city. We're the 17th largest city in the state of California, 99th largest city in the United States. But yet, under the leadership, the short leadership and even the longer leadership with you, we have not seen the destruction when there are protests. And I really attribute that to you and to how you handle, how you've trained your staff. And so I can just say I cannot be more thrilled to have you as our police chief. And I know you're going to do incredible things, and we're nothing but proud of you. And tell your wife that, thank her for sharing you with us.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Zalaki.
Thank you, Mayor and Chief. Congratulations, and I want to acknowledge that from the very beginning when you started as the interim, and I had a chance to talk to you about many of the problems that were bubbling to the surface, it seemed at times, and more so recently than in the past number of years that I've been on this council. And I appreciate the attitude that you took to listening to the public, hearing what they were saying, and then coming up with creative answers of how do we fix it. And I think one of the greatest ones is the discussion that you've had with a lot of people, including me, about mental health workers and the situation that has been there for a while, but going after creating a different kind of presentation to the public, especially those that are working through those processes themselves, having personal issues or personal challenges, and how we can become a little more human about how to communicate and how to discuss without having a full-blown officer right there talking to them. I think that's a great idea that you had come up with, and I know that you talked to many in the public and worked that through your process, and that's your goal, along with building our department and coming up with some ways to strengthen our department, including in numbers. It's not just resources, it's also the numbers and the quality of what we can bring to it. I think you're fully capable of doing that. I look forward to having you working now full-time as our chief, and congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Madrigal?
Yeah. I'll try to be brief, Chief. I'll try. First of all, congratulations. I know that it's not even about hitting the ground running. You're on the ground already running. So I think that we as a city also need to step up. We have a new chief, and I think that the time is right for us to also show leadership in other ways when it comes to keeping our city safe. And I know that for years it's been talked about having some kind of a dedicated public safety tax. We are one of the cities, I think, in this county that, well, let me just say this. I know that some of the other cities in this county have dedicated public safety taxes. I think it's a time for us to begin that conversation with our community openly and honestly to talk and discuss, what kind of what kind of a community, what kind of a city do we want to have, and what are we willing to do to make it as safe as possible. And I think it's definitely time for us as a city to begin that process. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, not at you particularly, just throw that out there to say, this, you know, new police chief, step one, step two, how are we going to make sure that our public safety, including our police department, has necessary resources to keep our city as safe as we want it to be. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Ricky.
Chief, congratulations. I'm muted here. Congratulations that you really earned this, you know, and I know because you were dealing with me 20 years ago when I was out in this city doing events and you know, what I really appreciate about you more than anything else is that you and I have our differences from time to time, but we always were able to kind of come together and find the safe solution that was right for everyone. I think that makes you really suited for doing this work. And so welcome aboard, and let's do some good for this community.
Thank you, absolutely.
All right. I'll save mine for last. Someone mentioned full-time. I can say from personal experience already that this man is working 24/7. I have gotten texts, it could be 11:30 at night, that were urgent, and I would send them to him and I would have a response. And it could be at 5 a.m. and I would get a response. So I know that you are on the job 24/7 and I truly appreciate that. One thing I might say is in the community, the years that I've lived here, and when you were the interim, while you've been the interim chief, I cannot tell you how many people came up to me and said that when Brandon Gillespie, when he thought no one was watching, they were. And he was professional. He respected people. He was a class act. Words like that. When people thought they were maybe not being watched, you were. And the comments were always positive. You know our people. You know the city, you know our people, your officers know our people. We know that. And that means so much to me and to our community. So on behalf of your family and everyone else that loves you, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
And I wouldn't be remiss, somebody mentioned it, and I would be remiss if I did not thank my wife Shannon, because without her, none of this would be possible. So thank you, Shannon. I appreciate everything.
Oh.
And I'm
Great.
glad you take Texas at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll remember that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you very much. Appreciate that. And that was a report only. So we will go on to hearings, which are next. Item number 21. Hearing to consider an omnibus amendment to Title 10 of the Modesto Municipal Code to address land uses permitted in the professional office zone, residential densities, parking requirements, non-residential fencing, and other minor amendments to update and streamline the city's zoning regulations. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Good evening. Steve Mitchell, Planning Manager. This is one in a series of omnibus code text amendments that the city does from time to time. You know, the city staff looks at our zoning regulations as kind of a living document. Over time, there are changes in practices, implementing the codes. We realize there's issues, new issues come up. There are changes in state law. And so for a variety of reasons, we want to keep our municipal code, our zoning regulations current. And so city staff kind of gathers together these issues, and from time to time, ideally once a year, maybe once every 2 years, we come before you with some proposed changes. So that's what you have before you this evening, is one of those proposed changes here. So the first, moving on, if I can get this thing to work. Scotty, maybe you could, there we go, thanks. Just one more slide, sorry. So the first item we have before you this evening is some changes to our professional office zone. Currently, our professional office zone is pretty limited. It's limited to offices, medical offices, and other types of non-residential uses such as retail and service uses and the like are only allowed in our commercial zones. But over the years, we've realized that there are many uses that are allowed in our commercial zones that can also be allowed in our professional office zones without creating issues. These are primarily things like schools, churches, business services, personal services. And so this code amendment would allow those uses in the professional office zone. It would also change the signage regulations to more closely match our commercial regulations here. So the next one is regarding residential densities. Our residential, we have two multifamily residential zones, the R2 zone, R3 zone, and they have density, both minimum and maximum densities. Our R2 zone maxes out at 14.5 dwelling units per acre, but the minimum density in our R3 zone is 22 units per acre. Obviously, there's a gap between the two. So this amendment would close that gap by basically reducing the minimum R3 density to match the maximum density of the R2 zone. The next one is accessory dwelling unit size. Some of you may recall we've already amended our code numerous times regarding accessory dwelling units, mostly because of changes in state law. With the last one, the state law allows up to 1,200 square feet for ADUs. We chose to go a little smaller than that originally with our code amendment of 1,000 square feet. However, a number of other communities around the county are allowing 1,200 square feet. So to make it consistent kind of countywide, we are proposing to change ours to allow up to 1,200 square feet for ADUs. And we have shopping center parking. You know, our code currently says, you know, every use has to have adequate parking. Some uses require more parking in theirs. For instance, restaurants typically have a high parking demand, so we have a different parking standard for restaurants. So typically in a shopping center where you have multiple uses, in the past we've always said if a new use is coming in and it has a higher parking requirement than our general retail standard, you need to do a parking analysis, make sure you have enough parking. But what we've realized, and this is kind of a practice issue, over the years is that in larger shopping centers at least, it's rarely an issue. There's rarely an issue with there being adequate parking. So we're proposing to kind of eliminate that that requirement to look at parking every time you change a use in a shopping center. We'd still keep that requirement for smaller centers because their single use can easily overwhelm other uses in terms of parking demand. So we still want to keep that for smaller retail centers, but for larger retail centers, we're proposing not to do that anymore. Non-residential fencing, this is kind of an issue that's come up in recent years. You know, we've never had fencing standards, at least for like front yard and rear yard, or front yard and side yards fencing standards for commercial development because we assume they're never going to want to fence off their properties. However, with all the things that have been going on in the community, we're seeing that increasingly, and we really didn't have any standards to deal with it. So, you know, it would allow it to be like chain link fencing and those setbacks. So we are now proposing standards for commercial fencing, that it has to be kind of a wrought iron or, you know, decorative material, and then it has to be set back from the street, not right up against the sidewalk in most cases. Currently, anytime we grant an entitlement, the council grants a PD zone or a conditional use permit. It comes with a time period that you have to exercise that entitlement within typically 2 years. And then if you don't build that project within 2 years, time expires, you have to come back and get a new extension of time. And that typically would require going back to the Board of Zoning Adjustment, Planning Commission, or City Council, depending on the entitlement. We want to kind of streamline that some. So we're looking to allow staff to grant those time extensions, provided the project hasn't significantly changed. If the project significantly changes, they would have to come back to the commission or board or council for a new entitlement. But if the project hasn't significantly changed, we would just streamline that and grant those time extensions at staff level. Finally, a couple of amendments that we were originally going to propose, did propose, but are not included with what you have before you this evening. We were also going to provide regulations to ban nightclubs from the central part of downtown. That was due to some issues that were occurring with some of the nightclubs, and also regulations to allow mobile food vendors, food trucks in our commercial zones. Currently, they're only allowed in industrial zones. However, the Planning Commission, when they heard this item, they expressed some concerns about both of these items and directed staff to go back and address some of these concerns and come back to them at a later date. So those items are not included in what you have before you this evening. We will be working to address those concerns that the commission expressed, and we'll be returning here probably at a later date, hopefully within a few months with those regulations in a revised form. With that, we have staff recommendation is to adopt the code amendments we presented to you this evening. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Questions from council members? Councilmember Madrigal?
Thank you, Mayor. Can you elaborate a little bit more, if you happen to recall, what were the concerns that were expressed by the Planning Commission about allowing, food trucks in our downtown area, and about banning the nightclubs?
Okay, sure. On the nightclubs, the commission was not comfortable with an outright ban. They wanted us to look at some other options, potentially proximity, concentration requirements, things of that sort. So we're currently working with other staff from police and fire, and we'll probably be doing some outreach to some of the existing nightclub owners to get their input, and we'll probably be presenting a range of options for the commission and council to consider here. So we're kind of working on that. On the food trucks, it was really, the commission felt there weren't quite enough standards we were proposing for food trucks locations. They were concerned about things like food trucks blocking accessibility access, ADA access and the like. And they didn't see any criteria there in what we were proposing for that. So they wanted us to come and go back and kind of take another look at those standards and maybe tighten them up a little bit.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any other questions from council members? All right, seeing none, any comments from the public? I don't see anyone online or in person. Any comments from council members? Oh, excuse me. All right, Nico? Online.
Hello?
Hi there.
Hi. I just wanted, I guess, for him to elaborate a little more on the nightclub banning and the street vendors. I didn't really understand that, or what is the solution, or what is the end goal for banning those and to looking at those. So that's all I have.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you. Would you please restate the situation there? Thank you.
Yeah, regarding nightclubs, there have been some concerns with some of activities that have been occurring outside of nightclubs, and there was concern about the potential for more nightclubs to locate in downtown, and that there really become kind of a concentration of these that could create issues with nuisance issues related to patrons getting out late, intoxicated, and the like. So the original idea was to basically just ban new ones from coming into the core of downtown, not the periphery of downtown. Again, the commission was kind of uncomfortable with that approach. They wanted us to look at other options. So some of the options we're considering is perhaps only allowing, they have to be located, I don't know, X distance from each other, for example, or perhaps, in a certain block area, you can only have, X number, just some regulations like that. We're actually looking at a variety of options right now. So we don't have any definitive options for you to present to you this evening. We're still looking working through that issue. And again, on the food trucks, we were proposing to allow them in all of our commercial zones, but requiring a permit, a staff issued permit for that. But, we have to make sure that they don't do things like block driveways, eat up all the parking. They don't, create kind of nuisance issues that sometimes can be associated with people just kind of, eating and kind of on the site and stuff. So we were proposing a process there where the commission, again, felt need a few more standards and criteria for approval of those. So those were kind of the two issues.
All right, thank you once again. Any comments from the council? Councilmember Madrigal?
Oh, did I push the wrong?
Sorry, mine was an
No?
old light. I'll turn
Okay,
mine
great.
off.
Councilmember Ricky?
All right. when you're talking about, just comment-wise, when you're talking about banning nightclubs and, you know, the restrictions on food trucks, my comment is that I hope that we keep in mind that creating spaces that appeal to younger adults is critical in the future economic development of this city. And it is something that we have consistently failed to address properly. And I hope in the visioning of, you know, whenever these regulations come back to us, that this is considered, because we need to create more avenues for young adults to succeed in this community and to have things for them to do. And right now, we just really don't. That's all I got.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from council members? Vice Mayor Scudia-Brayton.
Thank you, Mayor. I find it interesting that these two items that are pretty near and dear to our community are presented to the council, but yet are not formally on the agenda for presentation and public comment and well, just an extensive report provided on this. I look forward to the announcement of when they're on the subcommittees, that announcement be made clear so that the public and whomever wishes to attend, whether on council or not, can go to that subcommittee and express amply their concern on that particular issue at that forum, which would be the appropriate forum to have that conversation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none from council members, we have, need a motion. There's a lot of numbers here, but I'm going to read them. Motion introducing and waiving the first reading of an ordinance amending sections 10-3.101, 10-4.104, 10-4.115, 10-4.406, 10-5.102, 10-5.103, 10-5.104, 10-6.107, and 10-9.108, and chapters 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9 of the Modesto Municipal Code. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion from Councilmember Wright. Second from someone? Second from Councilmember Zalaki. And can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Ricky? Councilmember Zalaki?
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Councilmember Scudia-Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Mayor Zwallen?
Aye, so the motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we are on to new business. Item number 22, consider accepting the final report from the Charter Review Committee and authorizing the city manager to arrange workshops for the council to further evaluate potential changes to the charter and finalize the material for the 2022 election. And I'll turn this over to City Manager Joe Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the council's knowledge, all we're doing here tonight is accepting the recommendations that were performed by the Charter Committee. And we have several of those members here today who are going to provide a report back. I'd just like to reiterate that there were these are the recommendations of the committee, not what the council ultimately will decide. We will form workshops in the future to have further deliberation and discussion on changes within the charter. This is simply to accept the report of the work of the committee and to relieve them of their duties. This has been hanging out there for some time due to COVID. I do appreciate the work of the committee and all the effort that they put into it. And with that, I will turn it over to Edgar to kick off the presentation.
Thanks, Joe. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Edgar Garcia, and I'm a management analyst in the City Manager's Office. As support staff for the Charter Review Committee over the course of the last 2 years, along with Stephanie Lopez, our City Clerk, and staff from our City Attorney's Office, we're pleased to bring you this final report and recommended next steps. And I'll be very brief in my portion of this presentation and hand it off to Cecil Russell and Chris Tyler, who will do the bulk of the presentation for you this evening. So as background, the Modesto City Charter is the local constitution for the city by which the electors decide to govern themselves. A city charter, like the state and federal constitution, is a statement of basic principles outlining powers, relationships, and responsibilities. City charters are authorized under the California Constitution, which allows the city to choose either to be general law or to become a self-governing charter city. Modesto became a charter city in 1911 after it approved its first city charter, and actually when Modesto's population was only 4,000 people. The charter has been reviewed periodically, including major changes in 1950, 62, and most recently in 2008. And on the slide before you, you have the process by which the council approved to embark on this charter review committee process. At the September 10th, 2019 council meeting, council approved the process that allowed council members to appoint make an appointment to the charter review committee and authorizing the mayor to select one council member to serve as an ad hoc non-voting member, and that council member was former council member Christy Ayu. The initial 7 were then authorized to select another 4 at-large committee members for the community. And next slide, Scotty. And this is the process by which the council adopted at that time at the October 22nd, 2019 meeting. Mayor I won't read all the names there, but you can see there was a series of appointments made by the city council at that time, in addition to 2 two non-voting members, including Modesto City School Board trustee John Walker, to serve as an ad hoc non-voting member to support with regional and interagency issues, and as well as George Petrolakis, who is a past chairman during the most recent charter review committee process. And go to the next slide. And further, at the January 7th, 2020 meeting of the Charter Review Committee, the committee voted to direct staff to fill those 4 additional vacancies, and those 4 vacancies were then filled at the January 22nd meeting. They made appointments including Sandra Lucas, Tim Ragsdale, Ronaldo Rucker, and Jose Sabala, and appointed 4 alternates, Monica Valencia, Paul Baxter, Dewey Bradford, and Douglas Hyatt. And for purposes of for the record, Monica Valencia did serve as a voting member for the April 7th Charter Review Committee meeting. So that was the process. To embark on their work, the mayor at the time also assigned asked staff, the city attorney's office, and the city council to put together a list of items for the Charter Review Committee to review, and these sort of capture the essence of what those items submitted were. From the city manager, technical and miscellaneous sections, including modernizing language in most instances. From the city attorney, it was a minor section related to the California Voting Rights Act. And the city council, and it's in your report on the dais, including consider timing of the mayor's election, consider review of the city auditor section, role of the audit committee, role of the school district in the charter, among others. And next slide. With that background, I'll be handing it over to Cecil Russell and Chris Tyler, who will be delivering the recommendations to the council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us have this opportunity to report to you. So I'm Cecil Russell. I was appointed chairman of the committee by the previous mayor. And there's a few things that I would like to acknowledge. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the council for the unique opportunity to chair this committee, and also express appreciation to each of the committee members that dedicated their time to volunteer for this important committee, particularly because the COVID kind of interrupted our meetings, and we had to go to Zoom meetings and those kinds of things, and the committee stayed very, very dedicated. I'd also like to express appreciation to the city staff for their hard work, and I'm going to say especially Edgar. I'd never met Edgar, worked with the city a lot and that, but I'd never met this young man. And, I mean, he was fantastic to work with. From the city manager's office, of course, and Stephanie Lopez was city clerk. She acted as our secretary of it and kept the timing of the meetings and the scheduling of the meetings and that. And also supplied me with that book that's over there that's about this thick, which was I turned it over to Edgar. That was the report from the last Charter Review Committee. And that only took me about a year to go through that thing. I mean, it was quite interesting. And so two people from the city attorney's office, Frank and Alex, their hard work and the last 2 years working without Edgar and those people, we could not have finished our work. We could not have done what we did. And so in spite of the interruption from COVID, the group continued to work on the recommended charter revisions. And so before I get to thanking and introducing Chris Tyler, I would tell you one other thing that you guys should be proud of. The previous committee had, at a particular point, when they got to issuing their final report, they went to the council and they asked the council for funds to hire an outside group to come in and prepare that report. Because we'd worked so closely with Edgar and the city attorney's office and with Stephanie and that, and they'd kept copious notes for us and we would review those each and every time. I'd ask, rather than us come back to council and ask for funds to create a report, if they could do it, if they could work with us and do that. And they said, yes, we'll do that. We'll help you. And frankly, I was very grateful for that because they were very involved in the processes and the nuances and all the things that we were doing. So they saved the citizens, the taxpayers, a lot of money in doing that. And then we met after we got to, well, you have the report, but once we got to these things, Chris and I continued to meet with Edgar and the attorneys and that to fine tune everything to get it ready for you. So the last thing I want to do is I want to thank Chris Tyler. And Chris came with a lot of experience. He had been on the planning commission. He knew how, government worked and that. And I asked him if he would take a lead, and he did. He took a lead for us in that. And frankly kept the process moving really well. And so he's here now to articulate and to share with you those changes. Again, I want to thank all of you for the opportunity. It was very, very interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Welcome.
Oh, good evening, Mayor, council members, members of the public who are still here waiting us out. Appreciate the opportunity. And, I want to thank the chair. It wasn't always an easy thing to wrangle 11 of us and keep us moving in the right direction, but he showed exemplary leadership, and we're grateful for that. And it was an honor to really serve on this committee. I mean, I had a long track record of serving on various committees in the city, and I think this one was the highest honor, precisely because what this charter means. And I want you to all and the public to reflect on it. This is our Constitution. This is the foundation from which the city operates. And so we took this very, with really high regard and a great honor to work on it. I know every single member of that committee, that all 11 members and alternates did the same. They showed up prepared, they researched, they came and added tremendous value to the whole discussion. And so for that reason, because of the constitution of those people on that committee, this was very much the highest honor I've ever received from the city to serve. So now the heavy lifting begins here, so be patient and we'll go as quickly but as thoroughly as possible and take you through some of the recommendations. And the first one relates to the timing of the mayor's election. And I want to emphasize the word timing because we're not recommending any changes to the process, only the timing of the election. So currently, the charter requires that the mayor's election be held in November. And if there's no majority, 50% plus one, then there's a runoff election that's held in February for the voters to decide between the top two candidates. And so the issue that was presented to us for consideration was whether February runoff maximized voter engagement. And so the committee ultimately looked at data about turnout in November and went with the recommendation to move the mayor's election to enable the initial election to be during the statewide primary, which usually is held between March or June. And then if there is no majority earned in that March or June timeframe, the runoff would occur in November. So we're pushing the timing of the mayor's election to a period where there's likely the greatest level of voter engagement from a special election in February alone, where that's the only thing on the ballot. In the instance that a candidate receives more than 50% of the vote in that sort of March, June timeframe, then there would be no runoff in November, and that person would then be the mayor designate and would take office, though, in December along with the rest of the council. So that's our recommendation, putting the mayor's election on a ballot when voter engagement and participation is at its highest. On to the next slide. Perhaps there was no more issue that was consuming for the committee than the issue of the city auditor, and there was a great desire to ensure the clarity of the role for the city auditor and also strengthen the position of the city auditor. And I want to give credit to one of our committee members, Wendy Bird, who seemingly always went out and found an additional resource for us to talk to and rely on. And two of those resources that I want to acknowledge tonight, Anne Marie Hogan, who I believe is on Zoom and will be available during public comment to reflect on the process and the outcome. She's the retired city auditor of the city of Berkeley. And also Jorge Osagura, who is the current city auditor in the city of Sacramento. And both of them became tremendous resources for us to rely on. And I want to thank them. So I'll take you through a couple of the high-level changes that are being recommended, and then we'll drill down on subsequent slides on those issues. So the qualifications of the city auditor were changed to allow for a broader pool of candidates, and we'll go into more detail subsequently. To prevent prolonged absences and vacancies, there's a recommendation that the process after a vacancy for appointing a new city auditor begin within a specified period of time, that the process begin within 30 days of a vacancy. The responsibilities of the city auditor were modified to really add clarity, and there we relied on a template provided by Anne Marie Hogan and her colleagues through the Association of Local Government Auditors model legislation. So something that was very clear and transparent about what the role of the city auditor functions would be. And lastly, to add some protective measures to the city auditor, the recommendation is for removal of the city auditor require a supermajority, in this case defined as a 5-vote member of the council versus the current 4 as it is with other charter officers. And let me drill down on some of these on the subsequent slides. So as far as qualifications go, and this really is captured in 902.1 of the municipal code, or the charter code. The current language reads, the office of the city auditor is hereby established. The city council shall appoint the city auditor who shall serve at its pleasure. The committee felt that language of who shall serve at its pleasure, while applicable, the council hires the auditor and can fire the auditor, really sort of undermined the sense of independence of the auditor and voted to strike that language. Moreover, the city auditor shall be certified according to the standards comparable to a certified public accountant, and a certified internal auditor at the time of appointment was deemed to be too narrow to attract all qualified candidates. It was pointed out by the city auditor of Sacramento that this language alone would prevent him from applying for, somebody like him for applying for the job. So the language was altered to basically say the city auditor shall possess adequate professional proficiency for the job demonstrated by relevant certifications such as certified internal auditor, certified public accountant, or chartered accountant, or have an advanced degree and at least 5 years of experience in government auditing, evaluation, or analysis. So to broaden our pool. So that's one recommendation. As far as the appointment, I mentioned the concern with a vacancy occurring for a prolonged period of time, though we acknowledge that a process often takes a long period of time. And so the language that was inserted just sort of mandates the initiation of a process. And it says, within 30 days of a vacancy, the mayor shall initiate the recruitment process by recommending the selection of a recruitment firm or other recruitment process, and the council shall thereafter appoint a city auditor as soon as practicable. So it allows you to go through your process, but it starts the process. Next slide. As far as powers and duties, again, the intention of the committee was really to provide some clarity, and by adopting the language for powers and duties from the Association of Local Government Auditors, which again, all this language is, I'm not going to go through all of it here tonight, but it's found on page 19 of your report. We really feel like that added clarity to the role. And again, I want to give Anne Marie credit for really helping walk us through those powers and duties and for helping provide those. In addition, and not captured in the presentation, we created clear mechanisms for funding and staffing the office, and we also created clear mechanisms for how the auditor should issue reports to the council, outlining the scope of their work and then also the follow-up on their work to the council. So all that is kind of captured in that section. As far as the removal process, again, we as a committee imagine that the city auditor wouldn't always be the most popular person in the building because they're going through and they're advising as to what things need to be corrected and who's doing what appropriately. And so we wanted to insulate the auditor as truly an independent position from, maybe retribution on. And so the current language in the section 900 of the charter allows for the city auditor along with the city attorney and city clerk to be removed by an affirmative vote of a majority of the council, 4 council members. And we felt like the bar needed to be higher for the auditor. And so language was thrown out like super majority, but rather than get into the vagueness of what is a super majority, the language of 5 members was adopted specifically for the position of auditor. And then we are recommending a new section be added to the charter. There's reference in the charter to the audit committee itself, but there's no specific language. It's obviously vague. And so we are recommending this language be included as section 902.2. And it says that the audit committee shall review and forward to the city council quarterly reports of the city auditor's activities and findings. The charter review committee recommended the audit committee have the following composition. And so we're specifying that the charter review committee, that the audit committee be comprised of the mayor, plus 2 members of the council, plus 2 members of the public who are residents of the city of Modesto and possess a minimum of 2 years of experience in financial and performance auditing. Strong consideration shall be given to residents who are certified public accountants. So we felt like the audit committee would be bolstered by having that outside representation of 2 members of the public who are qualified members with the background in this in accounting. And then we also added, are proposing to you to add section 902.3, which actually goes through the audit committee functions. And so it says the purpose of the audit committee is to advise the city council on items related to the work of the city auditor and the city's financial statement audits. And among other duties, the committee shall review the auditor's audit plan annually, provide input basically on that, review and consult with the auditor on quarterly reports or updates of the city auditor's activities and findings, report any irregularities that they hear about to the city council, ensure that audit reports are transmitted to the legislative body, i.e. city council and the public, monitor follow-up, report to the legislative body on problems or problem areas, provide input and participation on the selection of a firm conducting the annual financial statement audit, so that's kind of a separate function, and review and forward to the city council materials related to the city's annual financial statement audit conducted pursuant to section 1306 of the charter. So we've taken great pains to sort of say, this is the audit committee and this is what the audit committee should do, and we feel like having that in the charter will add a considerable amount to bolster the position of both the auditor and the audit committee. I'll turn my attention next to the Office of City Manager. And so this is almost a technical level cleanup in some regards. We were asked to examine the residency requirement of the city manager. Currently, the charter requires that the city manager live within the city of Modesto. And it was pointed out that California Government Code and also the California Constitution prohibit such things. And while this has never been tested in a court, we felt, following the city attorney's advice, that it would be best to remove that requirement that the city manager live within the boundaries of the city of Modesto. So that is a recommendation to section 800. We're offering up 3 changes to the budget timeframes, really to just facilitate the process. As you all know, serving on the council and the public may know, there's a prescribed process and time frame for how a city budget is enacted, and it often isn't conducive to when information is available. So there are 3 changes that we're proposing. The first is that the deadline for the mid-year budget report would move from February 1st to March 15th, so push back some period of time. And this is because the sales and property tax information isn't available at February 1st, so it's sort of a heavy lift to kind of come up with a budget without that information, so this would push that back to March 15th when such information is available. The second time adjustment would be to deliver the mayor's final budget modification a couple weeks earlier, May 15th versus May 31st, to allow the council some time to have input through public hearings and the public as well, and also make any revisions. And so we were pressed up against that time frame to adopt a budget by the end of the year had that adjustment not been made. And lastly, we put in the budget section some language that would require the mayor to consider some of the budget priorities of the council members at the outset of the process. We heard from various council members that they would like to have more input at the outset of the budgeting process, and that wasn't always afforded to them under different leadership styles. And so we felt that it's the mayor's prerogative as the elected leader citywide to have that opportunity to prepare the budget, but on the other hand, we wanted the mayor to have council input. And so we simply required that a time frame for the council to submit to the mayor their ideas and ask through the charter for the mayor to consider those ideas. There's not mandated that he or she has to adopt those in preparing that initial budget. And lastly, are really purely technical amendments. The first 3 deal with commissions and boards. And so let me just offer up one point of background. There was discussion among our committee as to removing all commissions and boards from the charter. And had we decided to do so, this would allow the most flexibility to a council to include any commissions, boards, simply in the municipal code. Then you could make adjustments as they became antiquated. You could adjust, roles, responsibilities, composition more easily than if they're in the charter. The only way to change things in the charter is to go through this process that we're going through right now. There are, in addition to those 3 boards listed here, there's also the Planning Commission that's listed in the charter. And members of our committee felt that the Planning Commission was an important enough commission that they did not want to see it removed from the charter. became difficult for us then to justify sort of cherry picking and pulling other committees and commissions out of the charter because we felt it would confuse the voter, especially when such commissions and are named like the Human Relations Commission and the Cultural Commission. It may create some voter angst. So we decided to leave them all in because of that feeling of, particularly about the Planning Commission. So the adjustments that we're making are purely technical to just ease the burden of filling some of these positions. The Human Relations Commission, the concern was the ability to secure sufficient commissioners, and so the recommendation is to reduce the overall membership from 7 to 5, and that includes a minimum of 3, of which shall be registered electors of the city, and 2 which may live outside the city but be registered electors of the county. Again, making it easier for the city clerk to attract people to that commission. The second Cultural Commission, 1109, again, the concern was always to get a quorum for that commission, so the recommendation is to remove any specific membership criteria, much like our current Planning Commission has no membership criteria. And then the Board of Personnel Appeals, we left that in, but it's really a non-operative board. The function of the Board of Personnel Appeals is right now run by the California Public Employment Relations Board, and so we just added language in the charter to say that at the time that the, PERB, I guess they shorten it to, is functional, then this board is not functional. So that covers those commissions and boards. Purchase of supplies and equipment, which I believe is 1313. We just added minor changes to this that required the council to annually review the policies and procedures governing bidding regulations and purchases of supplies and services and equipment. Again, we felt it was important for the council to review like these purchasing decisions every year so that it was knowledgeable about what was required of its staff, and that it could help the city auditor if there was, deviations from that, or at least, so that was a requirement that they just review every year those policies and procedures. Public Works done by contract, section 1307. A lot of this is just antiquated language. We currently require or specify things like telegrams, so we're recommending minor changes to allow modern technology in advertising bids versus older technology like telegrams. And then as related to meeting and chairpersons, there's language in the charter that requires that committees submit reports, annual reports to the council, and that just doesn't happen, and it shouldn't be asked of these committees. So the CRC's recommended the removal of the requirement of boards and commissions to submit annual reports to the council. We're also recommending modernizing that language as well to eliminate telegrams and allow for the use of more modern technology. And that's the extent of our recommendations as summarized, and I'll hand it back to Edgar for a wrap-up.
Thank you, Chris. So to wrap up, I'll go through a few other administrative components and next steps. So as provided by the city clerk, Stephanie Lopez, there's no fiscal impact associated with the acceptance of this report, but as provided by the city clerk, there is an estimated cost of $150,000 to $200,000 to place this item on the ballot, and that would largely depend on how many items the council decides they want to move forward with to direct to the ballot. So again, that ranges between $150,000 to $200,000 based on information from our city clerk's office in coordination with the county elections office. And so as next steps, as you all are aware, any proposed changes to the city's charter must be submitted to the voters for approval. In order for any proposed changes to be considered for the November 22 election, the council must approve them no later than early June of 22. And administratively, in order to move forward with the charter review process, the recommended council action is that council accept the report of the charter review committee and authorize the city manager to arrange workshops at the council to further evaluate potential changes to the charter and determine the material that will be placed on the 2022 ballot. So with that, I'm happy to defer to the city manager in case he has any closing comments. Other than that, I'm happy to take any questions, or we are happy to take any questions.
No, again, I think I would just reiterate, all we're doing here today is accepting this report. We're not deliberating the merits of the report. There'll be plenty of time for that in future workshops. And again, just want to thank Cecil and Chris for your hard work and giving us this report. And I will turn it back to the mayor.
Thank you. Questions from council. Councilmember Ricky. Okay, I see Councilmember Madrigal. This is, okay, Vice Mayor, okay, go ahead, Councilmember Madrigal.
I did have my button pressed. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Great.
This is a question for Chris. If regarding slide number, budget timeline, section 1302.1 through .3. Just wait until they get
On
up
page
there.
9 on the printed.
Yeah, page 9 on the printed, yeah, that one. So regarding the budget timeline and moving, you know, these deadlines, and in the discussion about, you know, posting hearing notices and whatnot, was there any discussion at all by the Charter Review Committee to put language in there that would require, say, more of a community participatory budget process, if you will? For example, starting, say, community budget hearings earlier in the year, regardless of where, you know, the state, you know, revenue projections and whatnot. You see what I'm getting at? Was there any discussion about that at all? Like, we ought to do that, or we ought to not?
Not specifically. I mean, I think that our impression is that the budget process, there's always public hearings for the budget. I've been to a number of workshops on the city budget, so I think we felt like the process worked, other than what we tried to do is make sure that the council's input was heard by the mayor at the outset, and presumably the council is well informed of its constituents' priorities as well, and reflecting those in the initial draft.
All right, well, thanks. I just, the reason I say this is, I've long been a fan of beginning, you know, budget hearings early, even, you know, before, say, you know, may revises, waive, you know, so that we can sort of have this ongoing dialogue with our community, our constituents, in a formal hearing, sort of a forum, if you will, or for to hear from them what ought to be the budget priorities. I think, in my opinion, there's no such thing as too much community input when it comes to how we spend, you know, how we spend their tax dollars, and you know, where we decide that the budget priorities for that year ought to be. It's you know, community needs are changing, and I know that, you know, revenue is you know, is also changing. So that's where I was coming from. I was just curious if that was at all discussed, but thanks.
Thanks for the question.
All right. Thank you. Vice Mayor Rosa Scudia-Spree.
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, I heard you use legislative body and city council. Are those two used in, you're referring to the same body?
Synonymously, you are the legislative body, so
Okay,
I
that's what I
apologize
thought.
for
Just,
that.
you kept referring to both, and I just wanted to make that perfectly clear. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from council members? All right. Thank you very much for your presentation. Any comments from the public? I see one hand raised online. Stephen Allen. All right. So maybe Stephen Allen is no longer online. Is that correct? Okay, all right. Anne Marie Hogan?
Hi, this is Anne Marie Hogan from the Association of Local Government Auditors, and I want to thank you for having the opportunity to give input as Modesto looked at these changes. And I wanted to let you know that if any of you council members or committee members do have further questions and would like me to direct you to other resources or give you more information, Mr. Tyler does have my email address. You can simply email me directly. It may be that even though the committee is finished with the incredible work that you have done, which I think is really wonderful, when the time comes closer to the city attorney, and the council, and then the city attorney making those decisions about exactly how the ballot language is going to sound, it may well be that you might have some other questions. I was involved in advising on that issue actually twice in my career, once before I was elected and once after I was elected when we amended our city charter about the auditor. And so thank you so much. You did a wonderful job with this.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else wanting to speak from the public regarding this item? Seeing none, any comments from council members? Councilmember Knoyer.
Yes, I really want to thank the committee, the chair and the vice chair for their hard work. And it was really difficult for them to keep it going during COVID. I am pleased with the amount of work that they put into it, but I'm even more pleased at the size of the report. So all I can say is thank you for your time. It's appreciated, and we're just looking forward to the workshop and see if this is something that's been needed for a while, and I really appreciate the fact that you all took the time working through COVID and everything to get this accomplished. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Escudia-Brayton.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Chris and Cecil for leading this mammoth effort. I know the conversations were long, they were in-depth, they were intense. You had to manage a conversation that was very complex, and this was all voluntary. And you've stepped up to just bring a very important policy to the forefront and help us move it forward. So thank you for that, and thank you for your good work for the city, and keep it up. Thanks.
Great. Councilmember Wright.
Yeah, I too want to thank both of you. I know both of you, and putting you two together was probably a challenge, but probably a great challenge, because I know you complement each other and you have different strengths. So you guys, your committee did a great job, and I just want to, my hat's off to you, and thank you, Cecil, for not talking for 20 minutes. I appreciate that. So.
All right, Councilmember Zalaki.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to reiterate what's already been said. Thank you both, and to the entire committee. How many months?
A long time.
More than a year. 2 years. That's what I was thinking. At least. I mean, that's a lot of work, a lot of meetings, and a lot of communicating between the committee to everyone. Twice a week besides. Outstanding. Outstanding. No, they wouldn't do it. You should have. We could have been. I'm kidding. No, I really do appreciate the commitment that the entire committee put forward on this, the hard work. It's apparent. You did a great job. Look forward to the workshops and kind of delving into this even more so. So thank you both, and thank all of you on the committee if you're watching. I really appreciate your hard work. This means a lot to our city and moving forward. Thank you.
Right, appreciate that. I'll just make a brief comment to thank you so much for being here and representing your committee. I did follow it, listened in on some of the meetings, and this was a heavy lift. This was not just, opinions are very important, but getting down to facts and actually changing policy is sort of another level. And you stepped up to the plate, and I really appreciate your dedication. So I am looking for a motion for a resolution accept.
I'll make a motion, but before I do, I want to finish a comment that just brought up.
Okay.
To staff, I just heard wonderful things, how much they did in help pulling this together, especially at the end and creating a report. And Edgar, congratulations to our wonderful staff. You stepped up, but I'll make a motion. I don't have the motion in front of me. If they can bring it back up,
Got
I'll
it.
just make it.
Sure, resolution accepting the final report from the Charter Review Committee and authorizing the city manager to arrange future workshops for the council to further evaluate potential changes to the charter and finalize the material for the 2022 election. And I have a motion from Councilmember Zalaki. Do I have a second? Councilmember Wright. And can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Ricky?
Aye.
Councilmember Zalaki?
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Councilmember Scudia-Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Mayor Zwollen?
Aye, and the motion carries. Thank you very much. I know we need to get right on to the next item, but a 5-minute break, please, 8:10 p.m. Thank you.
Where's the warning bell when we need it?
Right. On to item 23, consider introducing, waiving the reading, and adopting an urgency ordinance amending Modesto Municipal Code, Section 4-23.02, by adding additional restricted items for manner regulations as to public assemblies, and introducing and waiving the first reading of a non-urgency ordinance amending Modesto Municipal Code, Section 4-23.02, by adding additional restricted items for manner regulations as to public assemblies. I'd like to ask staff for a report.
I guess I'll be the first to ask Chief Gillespie to come on up.
Welcome.
All right, well, good evening. I think we're coming down to the end of it. Brandon Gillespie, Police Chief, and happy to be before you. Tonight, like you said, Mayor, it's going to be proposed amendments that we're bringing before the council for the additional restrictions on the use of items during a public assembly. And our goal is always to keep the city as safe as we can and make sure that we protect the rights of everybody who express their freedom of assembly and First Amendment rights. And so that's what we're going to present here tonight. Lieutenant T.J. Moffitt is very involved and has been with all of our mobile field force and different type of planning for these organized events. So I'm going to have him come up and actually present this item to us tonight. And I'll be up here off the side to answer questions.
Great, thank you, and welcome.
Good evening. I'll try and be as succinct as possible. Again, my name is T.J. Moffitt, Lieutenant with the Modesto Police Department. And if I can figure out the clicker down. All right. Quickly, what I'd like to do is go briefly over the background that brings us here this evening, the legality of our proposal, deal with some specificity, what actual proposed amendments we're requesting, highlight a few key points, and then open it up to council for questions. So the initial catalyst for this in August of 2019, the City of Modesto added a Chapter 23 to the Modesto Municipal Code's Title 4, imposing certain time, place, and manner regulations to public assemblies. This municipal code was adopted in response to then current national events as well as upcoming local events in an effort to prevent violence and safeguard constitutional rights. Since then, MPD has successfully utilized this existing version of the municipal code to discourage violent behavior and successfully identify and remove potentially violent weapons such as makeshift shields, metal poles, knives, and other prohibited objects from public demonstrations. And we have done this with an approach of first education, then voluntary compliance, and then as a last resort, legal enforcement if required. The photo that you see in the associated slide is from an event in Modesto last year where a person had retrieved from their trunk a shield that they'd fabricated as they were preparing to go into a larger crowd at an event. That item in and of itself, absent the circumstances in the municipal code, may have not been a criminal violation. So at that point, we were able to contact that person, educate them about the municipal code, and we're able to get them to voluntarily store it back in their vehicle before they proceeded into the larger crowd. That has always been our goal in these type of events. We don't judge the success of these events based upon the number of arrests we make related to this municipal code, but rather how many people we can identify, educate, and resolve in a peaceful fashion the overall public assembly. This ordinance is only enforced when there is information to believe that a specific event or events might lead to violence or other acts designed to prevent the exercise of constitutional rights. What we do is we try to, whenever possible, provide advance notice using social media channels, posting signage at where we believe the events are going to take place. And we also reach out to stakeholders and community groups that we believe may be participating in these events and try to open up dialogue with them ahead of time, again, with the idea of making sure that it's a safe environment for them to be present in. The City of Modesto is not operating in a vacuum as we're continually evolving these types of municipal codes. There are a number of municipalities that have similar language. Those include cities like Los Angeles, Carlsbad, Santa Monica, and Laguna Beach. And as these cities are working to prevent violence during these public demonstrations, the tactics of those inclined to try and disrupt the freedom of speech and public assembly are also escalating and evolving their tactics to try and prevent that assembly from happening. As a result of that, we're requesting the adoption of additional content-neutral language to Title IV, Chapter 13 of the Modesto Municipal Code. I'd like to just highlight the language there of content neutral as we're describing and discussing these proposed amendments. Nothing in this language is designed or intended to target a specific group or ideology. It's here to protect everyone's rights as outlined in the Constitution. The proposed language was reviewed for legality and language by the City Attorney's Office prior to presenting to you here today. As we're going through the amendments, you'll see any changes to our existing municipal code are highlighted in red. And so the first example of that is subsection 9, which includes metal containers where previously only glass bottles or containers were prohibited under our existing municipal code. The metal containers are simply an expansion of this restriction to prevent the use of a blunt object capable of striking others and causing significant injury. It does not unreasonably prevent public assembly. There are several alternative drink containers that are available that can be utilized, most commonly a plastic water bottle. And again, other cities have utilized this type of restriction, including the aforementioned city of Laguna Beach. A quick internet search regarding demonstrations and metal bottles finds numerous postings instructing and guiding people on how to manipulate or adjust these containers to be used specifically as a blunt instrument to harm others. These were just the first two examples that I came upon, but there are numbers that talk about how to most effectively use them to harm others, which is obviously of concern. Subsection 14 adds any gas masks or other similar breathing devices. In the event of an unlawful assembly where widespread chaos and or violence has ensued, law enforcement agencies may be forced to utilize localized or area dispersed chemical agents to restore order and prevent ongoing violence. That's never our goal, but in the event that things do deteriorate to that level, non-authorized persons in possession of these type of masks have no other justification other than to try and overcome that chemical agent from law enforcement. Additionally, there is the concern that those utilizing those masks are because they've brought their own chemical agents, bear spray, OC spray, that you'll see on the news in some sort of violent demonstrations, and they're trying to protect themselves while they're applying those home-brought chemical agents against others. Subsection 15 includes any impact-resistant helmet, including but not limited to motorcycle helmets, bicycle helmets, sports helmets, or ballistic helmets. The justification here is similar to the previously discussed gas masks. Subjects are participating in public assemblies and wearing these helmets, doing so in anticipation of violence. They're designed to potentially further hide their identity and provide a level of intimidation to otherwise peaceful participants within the group. They can be swung and used as an impact weapon, used as a tool to resist and overcome the lawful authority of officers, or an escalation of a conflict with other protesters. The photo that is attached with this slide is again of a prior event within the city of Modesto. It should be noted that none of those participants arrived on any sort of means of conveyance that would require a helmet, which leads to, which I think is a honest question of, what about people that show up on bicycles or that ride motorcycles, and is this going to preclude them from safely traveling to the event? I think that's a very reasonable question to ask. My answer that I would invite you to consider on that is that most people that are going to be coming on a bicycle or going to lock or secure it somewhere, they could very easily use their bicycle chain to lock their helmet to their bike. Similarly, most modern motorcycles have a locking design where they can actually lock your helmet to your motorcycle, which is what we would encourage both those people to do, is use those alternative means of conveyance if that's what's appropriate, but secure those and leave them with your means of transportation outside of the immediate vicinity of the gathering. Subsection 16 adds any laser pointing devices. Something that we've seen nationally is the utilization of commonly easily acquired laser devices to distract or injure officers or other counter-protesters. Not that long ago, there was an incident in Portland where several officers sustained serious eye injuries as a use of this tactic by unlawful demonstrators. Subsection 17 includes any umbrellas in the absence of rain. During rainy weather, an umbrella shall not exceed 16 inches in its longest dimension when fully collapsed and shall have a blunt end. On this slide, there's a screen capture of an event that was advertised earlier this year in Sacramento, where they were encouraging attendees to dress in black bloc attire. That's where the participants wear all black, so they're less easily identifiable if they're disrupting or causing violence, to bring shields and also umbrellas. The tactic that we've seen here is that people are using large to oversized umbrellas as both a shield and a weapon, as well as a means of concealing illegal activity as they're retrieving things from their backpacks they're going to throw, items like that. We've seen these used locally and prior local incidents, and they were routinely placed or pointed between opposing factions by possessors in an aggressive fashion. At no point did we see them using them as a respite from the elements to provide shade or dealing with inclement weather. This particular provision still does allow for people participating in a peaceful assembly in inclement weather to utilize an umbrella. It's simply providing some guidance on the type, size, and shape of that umbrella, similar to existing restrictions that we have on the composition of sign materials during a protest. In other words, if it's raining outside and you have a small collapsible umbrella, commonly like we would carry to work, that would be perfectly fine, even with this provision being adopted. This is an example of, again, an event last year here in the city of Modesto where persons were utilizing these umbrellas and using them to place between themselves and counter-protesters in an aggressive fashion. Subsection 18, any professionally manufactured or personally fabricated equipment or clothing designed to be bullet resistant, fragment resistant, stab resistant, or impact resistant, including but not limited to riot control gear, sports equipment, bullet resistant vests, flak jackets, or stab resistant vests. And subsection 19, load bearing or similar tactical vests designed to carry weapons, tactical equipment, or armor plates, commonly used by law enforcement or military institutions. And candidly, what we're trying to do here is prevent an otherwise peaceful demonstration to be manifesting itself into some sort of a war zone or something out of a Mad Max movie. Some of these protesters have adopted more confrontational garb, seem to provide an advantage in a physical confrontation. It's not designed nor intended to facilitate peaceful assembly or the exercise of constitutional rights. Rather, they appear to embolden those looking for confrontation with other demonstrators or law enforcement. The possession of these items do not further anyone's ability to peacefully assemble and are commonly tools enlisted by military and law enforcement. Again, examples from a prior event within the city of Modesto. What we don't want is people that are showing up looking for a fight. So the key points that I just want to highlight is that the existing restrictions under Title IV, Chapter 23 of the Modesto Municipal Code were enacted to ensure the peaceful exercise of constitutional rights. The amendments that we bring forth today are brought forth in that same spirit. We want to safeguard our residents, our visitors from potential violence that we don't want in our city. Again, these amendments are content neutral. They're not designed or targeted against any one particular individual, group, or ideology. And I would respectfully suggest that we consider their approval. The urgency ordinance portion of this is due to the fact that we have learned of a potential event occurring near the end of this month within the city of Modesto, causing our accelerated timetable. And with that, I will open up for any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Does council have any questions? I see Councilmember Zalaki. Questions? No. Oh, no? All right. Okay, Vice Mayor Escudia-Brayton.
Thank you. If approved here tonight, how would these updated amendments be communicated to the public?
So in the event that we are able to solidify that there is an event coming at the end of the month, which it appears there will be, prior to that, we will be pushing it out via social media. When we have these type of events, we also assign liaisons with the department to contact those groups which are advertising that they are going to attend either in support of or against such an event, and have direct contact and give that information to them ahead of time, in addition to social media. We also have posted signs. We actually have started adopting even QR codes so people can scan them and read them at their leisure. They don't have to stand in front of a sign where it might be too small to read. And then we also outfit officers with paper copies so that if contacted during the event, those people actually have an opportunity to take and retain with them a copy of all of the restrictions. Again, with the ultimate goal being education and voluntary compliance.
And if someone were to attend an event with an umbrella and it's confiscated, or is it held for them? Is it given back? What happens to that device?
So ideally, I'll be quite honest, we don't want to take it. We'd rather, if you have a vehicle, please go place it back in your vehicle. It's a legitimate item for legitimate purposes. If there is a law enforcement action that is taken where a person, for example, is cited, and we are required to take that from them, they would be issued a property receipt and it would be retained where they could later collect it from our property and evidence facility. It's not something we're going to seize indefinitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any further questions from council members? All right, from the public, any comments? I see B.
Yeah, I have something to say about that. I think that it's really interesting that pretty much everything that's being banned is they're self-defense items. So I don't know if these cops want to beat the shit out of us themselves, or if they want to just like open the doorway for the opposition to come after us. But yeah, you want people to not be able to wear helmets. What do you think helmets do? They protect people's skulls. Are you kidding me? Like what? And then like you want to take away umbrellas so that you can shoot people with rubber bullets, basically, or so that people can't protect themselves from projectiles. Now, while you may say this is about like everybody's safety, come on, that's BS. Think about it for a second, City Council. Throughout history, and you can see this recently, the police, even Modesto police, only target certain groups. They may say that these laws are supposed to be like evenly spread out, but they don't evenly enforce them. they don't evenly enforce them on the Proud Boys, for example. Yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And what else was there? Gas masks. So you want to be able to gas people? People die from that. People die from tear gas. Like, what if you're tear gassing somebody with asthma? You're gonna kill them. Like, okay, what are you trying to do here? You like, you really think that you're pulling a fast one on us, don't you? But everyone fucking sees through it. Everybody does. Yeah, I'm trying to think about the rest of them, the rest of the items on that list. But yeah, I mean, they're pretty much all like self-defense things. And like, just because you ban these things doesn't mean that the Proud Boys aren't going to attack people. They're going to attack people. All you're doing is taking away their ability to protect their bodies. Like, people are just going to be more vulnerable to the Proud Boys and to the police. So, yeah, I just think that's something that should be taken into consideration when planning things like this, or planning to pass laws like this. Because, I mean, people have been brutalized by the police at protests. There was in Occupy Oakland, there was a veteran who had serious brain damage from a police quote unquote non-lethal. Like, and you want to take away helmets. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Alan. Do we have Alan? Apparently not.
He's unmuted and able to talk.
All right. So Alan? All right, we will come back to you. If you're there, we will try again. Next is Hunter.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I wanted to start off by saying, thank you for allowing me to speak. And I wanted to say that I find this measure, this banning on the items for protest as rather strange, hypocritical, and maybe even tone deaf. We don't have a violent protest problem. We have a white supremacy problem. We have a violent alt-right hate group problem. We have a violent and untrained police problem. I know you can't answer these questions, but I just want you to ponder them and think about them. Will this be used to go after violent fascists and alt-right hate groups? Or will you decide to use this and target peaceful protesters and bystanders standing up for justice, for what's right? You have said it won't disproportionately target peaceful protesters or specific groups, but how can we believe you when your history says otherwise and the history of the police in general says otherwise? During a George Floyd protest last year by the Modesto March, Justice for George Floyd, after the peaceful demonstration was ending, your officers, MPD, beat peaceful protesters and bystanders with batons. Some of the people weren't even involved. You also used other means of quote unquote non-violent means to harm people who were being non-violent. Your same officers have stood idly by while alt-right white supremacist groups with homophobic and racist stances have attacked members of our community. Another thing that has led to a huge mistrust in your officers is the case with Joseph Lamantia, who has killed numerous people, only recently being caught. Other officers have been known to beat and harass people of color and the homeless community in our community, which has caused even higher levels of mistrust. This item is a very and extremely dangerous measure and should not be put into action, at least without further thought and further education for your officers and for City Council. I just don't understand how you think we don't see what's happening here. We do see what's happening here.
All right. Okay, somehow that, you dropped off. So next I will go to Stephen Allen.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I was at a protest, a couple different protests a couple summers ago. And you want to know why I was there? Because I'm sick of living in a society that doesn't give a damn if cops kill black people over and over and over and over again. All over our society. It's disgusting. So I thought, oh, I'll go see what I can do, being a person that cares. And I went down and I participated and I stood up for what's right. And then it was very disheartening to me at that protest downtown Modesto to see that when things did get a little bit rowdy or whatever, it was nothing, no scene from Mad Max, trust me. But it was majority, and I'm not going to say there weren't protesters that were upset and they were like wanting things to escalate. It was a definitive, clear majority of the people that when it started to get that way, it was the cops. I was standing there, just looking around, and I saw police officer after sheriff's deputy getting psyched like they're going into a football game. Why in the world would you want to ban people's ability to defend themselves regardless of who they're defending themselves from, but especially given that we have a sheriff that meets behind closed doors with far-right groups? We have had plenty of incidences in our area. When I was downtown Modesto protesting on behalf of Black Lives, I had a cop stick a less than lethal weapon in my face from less than 10 feet away, and then laugh. And you know why he did that? Because I called him out because he was doing it to somebody else. This is the culture in our police departments, and you want to take away our freedom if we so choose to wear a helmet going into a protest. This is disgusting. Shame on you. How about, instead of saying we can't wear a gas mask, how about don't gas your people? And lastly, and really this is the most important, why am I always seeing police officers telling you guys what rules to enact? I thought there was supposed to be separate branches for that. Like some of us make laws, some of us enforce them. Why are we having the cops tell us what they're allowed to do and what we're allowed to do when we respond to social injustice? This is disgusting. This must be rejected. There's no way on earth this town wants the publicity of being a town that said that people can't protect themselves from brain trauma or from ingesting poisonous gas that has been at times banned from theaters of war. And you want the freedom to gas your people. Why in the world would anyone want to live in a town or spend money in a town that wants to do that?
All right, next we have Ron Bridegroom.
Yeah, good evening. This is a really concerning issue because one, it goes against the First Amendment, and second, this is all gaslighting. And all we know what the police is gonna do, they're gonna target the peaceful protesters, yet they're not gonna do nothing with the far-right chuds and fascists. We've seen that. We've seen that last summer in Oakdale when they didn't do nothing against the California State Militia with their AR-15s, yet they arrested peaceful protesters when they were attacked by the far-right chuds. And the sheriff didn't do nothing. Yeah, he hangs out with those far-right groups. And also, I was there at the protest, at the George Floyd protests last summer. There were so many police horses headbutting protesters. And also another caller said that he had a gun pointed in his face, like with a non-lethal weapon pointed in his face. And that officer used to be a partner of Joseph Lamatia. Also, I had nightmares. I remember seeing Joseph Lamatia wearing his SWAT uniform, ready to have his AR-15 pointed at me and started to shoot. This is violent police culture at its worst, with gaslighting and telling us to protect everyone for the sake of safety. But I don't buy it at all. This is basically trying to shut down the peaceful constitutional rights of peaceful protesters, and to use these things to protect itself, not for fighting or anything. Yeah, you're gonna allow these far-right fascist creeps with their AR-15s and their shields and their vests and everything to intimidate us, and the cops are gonna do nothing? This is shameful. You need to reconsider. We've been in protest, and every time, and I don't want to bring this, but remember January 6th, when there were 4 or 5 police officers died from these far-right chuds, and they used weapons? You should target the far right, not the peaceful protesters. And this is all because they bought this big lie that Antifa is coming around town and destroy everything. This is all baloney. And this is nothing more to stifle our constitutional rights and our right to self-defense. And you need to start treating people with respect. This is not Israel, Russia, China, or some authoritarian country where they have cops throwing gas and injuring people. This is America. You need to respect the Constitution. That is all I have to say. Thank you.
You're welcome. Back to Alan. All right. Is Alan there? All right, looks like we have, apparently not. We've heard from everyone online, and we have one more person in person? Sure. Please step up to the microphone so that we can hear you. Are you having a hard time?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Forgot to say earlier, I'm disabled, I'm a senior citizen. I like to come to these meetings just for these after things, and if the public would know what's going on, they'd be in here. I bring my child so she knows what's going on. In Modesto, all these applications of new enforcements, if you looked at the photos, and if you were there at the protest, the people that were there, peaceful protesters, were not in the gear that they're describing. Those were the people that were wanting to cause problems and issues. Those were the people that they let slide, but they took to jail the peaceful protesters. My daughter was in a couple of those protests. She got gassed just for protesting, speaking her First Amendment right, or is it the second? The right to speak freely, to voice your opinion. All those things, a peaceful protest, are not going to happen unless you have those troublemakers. And I'm sitting here telling my daughter, you guys, you want to make this out like it's someone else's issue, but you're going to turn this stuff around and use it on the wrong folks. And it is a disgrace. I have lived in this town the majority of my life, and the stuff that has been happening now has been happening when I was in high school. My brother got caught up in the system that you guys think is so, no, you didn't help do anything. You're not helping now. It would be nice if it worked, like the commercials say, but it's not happening. And there's an undercurrent of things going on that's prevalent in this town. And it's happening, and I'm going to say it out loud because I try not to go there, to people of color. It's despicable. I'm just sorry, I have to say my piece because it's like, no, you guys are trying to pull some stuff, and that's not cool. If you want to work together with the public, citizens. That's what it is. You're driving away our youth. It's a nice town. You got people coming in from the Bay, they're bringing all their bad stuff, and us accidents every day more because they're driving like ducks out of Hades. It's just madness. And then you want to blame the people that are here. Us that live here, that are from here, can't exist in our own damn town. I don't get it. I really don't. I really don't. And I would like that to change. I would like something to be done. We need to be better. We all need to be better. We all need to be kinder. We all need to be better. Live like those commercials. They're so bright, sunny, and flowery. Can we live like that? Can we?
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. We still have another person online. Danny?
Hello?
Hi there.
Hear me? Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just, I wanted to come in and speak about this. I noticed that, while a lot of the items on this list seem to be for self-defense, I think it's kind of funny that when they say that this is supposed to be, you know, for everybody's safety, that the one group that's known internationally for violent attacks, the Proud Boys, they're a terrorist organization. They're labeled that in Canada. They have no problem with self-defense items being taken away because they see it. They know that that's an opportunity for them to kill their opponents. And the police know that too. The police work with them. The sheriff, Dixie, whatever, what's his name? Yeah. He's been meeting with them. He met them over at Ridgeway's. He met with the Central Valley Patriots, whatever. You know, that group, they may call themselves the Central Valley Patriots, but they're tied. They're tied to the Proud Boys. I remember a couple weeks ago, that Sean Kuckendall guy, that guy, he came in here and he was all saying some stuff, and he said that he was a member of the Central Valley Patriots. He's the leader of the local Central Valley Proud Boys, you know, and the sheriff is meeting with these people, and the police department is trying to take away protections, physical protections that are supposed to help people when they're being attacked. It's bullshit. Excuse my language, but it is, you know. Sorry, that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Next we have Jay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so I really want to reiterate what everyone else has said. I also just want to say that, you know, how can we expect to trust you? And I'm talking directly, you know, to the police officers present and the sheriff. How do you expect the community to trust you after the horrible actions your officers have committed in, you know, the last couple of years, but for a long, long time now? During a peaceful demonstration in the summer of last year for a George Floyd protest, at the end of the peaceful demonstration, your officers beat multiple people with batons. Some of them weren't even involved. I also want to say that one of your officers, Joseph Lamantia, has killed numerous people and just now got caught. Your officers have also beaten and harassed people of color and the houseless community. This has caused so many high levels of mistrust. And here you're saying you're not going to disproportionately target specific people when you're already doing that. There is such a lack of oversight and transparency and lies coming from this department. And it is honestly just ridiculous and insane how you think we don't see through it. We have eyes, we have ears. We have been present in this community. We live in this community. And I really urge the council and your officers to listen to what we are all saying. We are not going to forget about this. We're going to keep showing up to these meetings and demanding justice. accountability, and transparency.
Thank you. One last attempt for Alan. Right. It appears you're unmuted, but we cannot hear you. So thank you for being here. All right, we will go back to close public comments and go back to council members for comments. Do I have any comments from council members? All right, this item will require 2 motions. The first one is a motion introducing, waiving the reading, and adopting an urgency ordinance amending Modesto Municipal Code Section 4-23-02 by adding additional restricted items for manner regulations as to public assemblies. Do I have a motion?
I make the motion.
Motion by Councilmember Wright. Do I have a second?
Can I make a comment here?
Sure.
I'm inclined to support this with some hesitation, based on what we heard tonight. So I just hope that these new rules that we put in place are put in place in a way that's appropriate, and that we use these rules to protect people rather than to hurt people. And in the event that these rules are used to hurt people rather than protect people, I think we need to have another conversation. That's all.
All right, thank you. So I have a motion from Councilmember Wright and a second from Councilmember Canoyer. Can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Ricky?
Aye.
Councilmember Zalaki?
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Councilmember Escudia-Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Mayor Wallen?
Aye. The motion carries unanimously. The next motion is introducing and waiving the first reading of a non-urgency ordinance amending Modesto Municipal Code Section 4-23.02 by adding additional restricted items for manner regulations as to public assemblies. Do I have a
Move
motion?
approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Councilmember Ricky, seconded by Vice Mayor Rosa.
Give it to
Excuse me.
Tony.
You can give it to Councilmember Ricky.
Okay. Second, everyone was excited about this one. Second by Vice Mayor Escudia-Brayton. Can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmembers Ricky?
Aye.
Councilmember Zalaki?
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Councilmember Escudia-Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Mayor Wallen?
Aye. Carries unanimously. Thank you. Next is matters too late for the agenda. I see Councilmember Ricky's name there, but I think it's probably from a previous one. No matters too late for the agenda. I do want to thank Dana Sanchez for being here this evening to take the notes and participate in our meeting. I appreciate that. And seeing no further comments, I'm calling this meeting of the City Council to be adjourned.